Imagine living with a mind that works for you, not against you. A mind that doesn't sabotage your peace, your goals, or your happiness. Imagine what it would feel like to have control over your thoughts, instead of letting your thoughts control you. But let's be honest, how often does your own mind become your biggest obstacle? How many times have you felt overwhelmed by fear, doubt, anger, or anxiety, not because of what's happening around you, but because of what's happening inside your head? The truth is, most of our suffering doesn't come from the world, it comes from the way we think about it. Your mind is powerful. It can either be your greatest ally or your worst enemy. And until you learn how to master it, you will keep getting in your own way. You will keep making excuses. You will keep reacting instead of acting. You will keep living below your potential. Today, you're going to discover the Stoic lessons that will help you conquer your own mind. These aren't theories. These are timeless truths used by warriors, philosophers, and leaders to stay calm, stay clear, and stay in control no matter what life throws at them. So get ready, because after this video, the war inside your head will never look the same again. But first, make a promise to yourself. Write in the comments, "Starting today, I master my mind. I am Stoic." Don't treat this like a quote. Treat it like a command. Every time you repeat it, you're training your brain to take orders from you, not your emotions. So write it down now and let's begin. Number 1. Recognize the illusion of mental continuity. Let's start with something uncomfortable, but necessary. You are not who you think you are. At least, not in the way your mind tries to convince you. Every day, your mind builds a story about who you are. It stitches together your thoughts, beliefs, and memories into a single identity, like a movie with no cuts or breaks. It tells you, "This is me. I've always been this way." But that story is a lie. A useful lie, maybe, but a lie nonetheless. Here's the truth. Your thoughts change. Your beliefs shift. What you were certain about last year might make you cringe today. What you swore you would never do, you now consider. And yet, even with all these contradictions, your mind still insists, "I am the same person." Why? Because your brain craves consistency. It fears change. It fears admitting, "I was wrong." So it pretends. It smooths over your inconsistencies and creates the illusion that you have always thought this way, always felt this way, always been this way. That illusion is called mental continuity. And if you don't see through it, it will trap you forever. You will cling to old ideas just because they feel familiar. You will defend beliefs that no longer serve you just because they once defined you. You will say things like, "That's just who I am," when what you really mean is, "I'm afraid to change." But Stoicism teaches us something different. It teaches us that the wise person does not cling to the past. The wise person does not fear contradiction. The wise person evolves constantly, consciously. Marcus Aurelius, in his journal, reminded himself again and again, "You are not your thoughts. You are not even your mind. You are the one who observes the mind. And if you are the observer, then you have the power to change what you see." So here's the challenge. Let go of the idea that you must always be the same. You don't owe consistency to anyone, not even to your past self. What matters is not who you were, but who you are becoming. Think about the moments in your life when you've grown the most. Were you following your usual thinking, or were you questioning it? Did you grow by repeating your old thoughts, or by challenging them? Growth always starts with disruption. It starts with the moment you admit, "Maybe I was wrong, maybe there's another way." But your ego will resist this. It will whisper things like, If I change my mind, I'll look weak. If I admit I was wrong, people won't respect me. If I let go of this belief, who will I be? Ignore that voice. That voice is not your strength, it is your prison. Freedom begins the moment you question your own mind. So how do you practice this? Start by noticing your contradictions. When you feel strong emotion, anger, jealousy, pride, pause and ask, have I felt this before? Have I thought the opposite before? You'll be surprised how often your mind flips sides without telling you. Then, write. Keep a journal, just like the Stoics did. Write about your beliefs, your thoughts, your reactions, and later, go back and read what you wrote. You'll start to see it. The gaps, the contradictions, the stories that no longer match who you are. Don't be ashamed of this. Celebrate it. It means you are alive. It means you are thinking. It means you are not frozen in time. The Stoic goal is not to be rigid. The Stoic goal is to be clear. And clarity requires honesty, even when it hurts. So the next time your mind tries to convince you that you've always been this way, stop and ask, is that true? Or is that just a story I'm telling myself? Because once you see the illusion for what it is, you're free to change, free to grow, free to become the person you were always meant to be, not the person your past trapped you into being. Recognizing the illusion of mental continuity is not weakness, it's the beginning of wisdom. And that wisdom, it's what sets you free. Number 2, disarm the voice of internalized authority. Listen closely. That voice in your head, the one that tells you what to do, what to fear, what to avoid, where did it come from? You think it's yours. You think it's you. But much of the time, it's not. It's your father's disappointment, your mother's fear, a teacher's criticism, a coach's harsh words, a society's expectations. Over the years, you've absorbed voices, commands, judgments, labels. Some were spoken out loud, others were just implied. But little by little, they became part of the way you think. You didn't choose them, you inherited them. And now, without even noticing, you obey them. You stop yourself from speaking your truth because you hear a voice say, don't cause problems. You chase status or money, not because you need them, but because a voice whispers, you're nothing without success. You ignore your creative ideas, your inner compass, your intuition, because somewhere deep down, a voice repeats, that's not realistic. That's not responsible. That's not who you are. But whose voice is that really? Is it yours or someone else's living in your head? Marcus Aurelius once said, if you are pained by any external thing, it is not this thing that disturbs you, but your own judgment about it, and it is in your power to wipe out that judgment now. That includes judgments passed down to you by others, especially those. You see, Stoicism is not just about controlling emotions. It's about freeing your mind from what does not belong to you. If you want to be truly free, you must first identify which parts of your thinking are borrowed. That doesn't mean you blame your parents, your teachers, or society. Stoicism is not about blame. It's about responsibility. And your mind, now, is your responsibility. So here's the question. When you hear the voice of doubt, when you feel guilt for wanting something different, when you hesitate out of fear that you're not enough, ask yourself, who taught me that? Whose standards am I following? Does this belief move me forward or keep me trapped? Because the truth is, many of your destructive thoughts aren't yours. You've just heard them so many times that they feel like your own. That's what internalized authority does. It hides behind your voice. And the only way to break free is to start questioning everything you didn't choose. Write it down. What beliefs do you hold about success, failure, love, worth, and identity? Where did those beliefs come from? And, most importantly, do they still serve you? You are allowed to let go of ideas that were forced into your mind. You are allowed to reject rules that don't fit the life you want to live. You are allowed to rewrite the script. Seneca wrote, "No man is free who is a slave to the opinion of others." But some opinions are so deeply planted that we mistake them for our own thoughts. That's the real trap. And that's why this work is hard, because it takes courage to look inside your mind and admit, this belief is not mine, it was given to me, and I no longer accept it. But the moment you do that, really do that, you open a door to think for yourself, a door to define your values, a door to act not from fear or pressure, but from clarity and intention. That's freedom, not the freedom to do whatever you want, but the freedom to be who you really are, without the invisible chains of other people's voices guiding your every move. So the next time that voice rises inside you, telling you to be small, to stay quiet, to follow the rules, pause and ask, is this truth, or is this just noise I've mistaken for truth? Because until you disarm that voice, you're not free. But once you do, you become unstoppable. Number 3. Separate thought from identity. Let's make something very clear. Your thoughts are not you. They are not your identity. They are not your truth. They are not your destiny. They are just patterns, neural signals firing in your brain, chemical storms passing through. Yet most people live their entire lives believing, if I think it, it must be real, it must be me. That belief is a trap, and the Stoics knew it. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself over and over, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. But to have power over your mind, you must first learn to see the difference between your thoughts and yourself. Here's what happens. A thought appears. Maybe it's angry, maybe it's fearful, maybe it's self-defeating. I'm not good enough. I always mess things up. I'll never get through this. And without questioning it, you absorb it. You merge with it. You say, this is who I am. But it's not. It's just a cloud passing through your mental sky. You don't blame the sky for its clouds. You don't say, this storm defines the sky. You know it will pass. The same is true for your thoughts. They are visitors, not residents. They are inputs, not your essence. The moment you stop attaching your identity to them, you begin to reclaim your power. That's what the Stoics trained for. They didn't aim to stop thoughts. They aimed to observe them, calmly, clearly, like a wise guard at the gates of a city. They saw thoughts come in. They questioned them. They chose what stayed and what left. So how do you do this? Start by noticing your language. Every time you say, I am anxious, stop. Rephrase it. Say, I am experiencing anxiety. You are not the emotion. You are the one feeling it. Say, a thought of failure has entered my mind, not I'm a failure. That small shift creates space between you and the thought, and in that space is your freedom. Next, observe without judgment. When a negative or irrational thought appears, don't fight it. Don't shame it. Just watch it. Label it. That's a fear. That's a memory. That's doubt talking again. You'll start to notice patterns, voices that show up during stress, voices that echo your past, voices that always want to pull you down. And when you see them for what they are, just thoughts, they start to lose their power. They no longer control you. They no longer define you. This is not denial. This is discipline. It is the mental discipline to stand apart from the noise in your head and say, I see you, thought, I hear you, but I do not have to follow you. That's real self-mastery. Remember, your brain is a survival machine. It was built to react, to fear, to imagine worst-case scenarios. That doesn't make it your enemy. It just means you have to learn to drive it, not be driven by it. The Stoics trained for this daily. They wrote their thoughts down. They questioned them. They replaced harmful beliefs with useful ones. They did not say, I must feel good all the time. They said, I must see clearly whether I feel good or not. That is the core of Stoic thinking, clarity over comfort. So when a thought enters your mind today, especially one that criticizes, blames, or weakens you, ask yourself, is this thought true? Is this thought useful? Is this thought me, or just something passing by? And if it's just passing by, let it pass. Don't chase it. Don't argue with it. Just observe it. And return to the present moment, to the you behind the noise. Because once you separate thought from identity, you no longer live at the mercy of your own mind. You live by your values, by your choices, by your reason. That is what the Stoics called freedom. And that freedom is already within you, waiting to be claimed. Number 4. Train in strategic self-contradiction. It sounds strange, doesn't it? Why would you want to contradict yourself on purpose? Why challenge your own beliefs? Aren't you supposed to stand firm in what you think? No, not always. Not if you want to grow. Not if you want your mind to be a tool, not a tyrant. Most people confuse confidence with certainty. They think that to be strong, they must never waver, never doubt, never change their mind. But that's not strength, that's rigidity. And rigidity snaps under pressure. Real strength is flexible. Real strength is willing to test itself. And one of the greatest mental disciplines you can develop is the ability to argue against your own beliefs. Not because they are wrong, but because you want to see if they still hold up. This is strategic self-contradiction, and the Stoics practiced it deeply. Seneca said, "Why do you not act instead of complaining? There is no belief, however absurd, that will not yield to reason." That includes your beliefs, even the ones you love, even the ones that feel like they define who you are. Here's the reality. Your brain doesn't want to change. It wants to keep running the same programs. Why? Because it's easier. It's efficient. Beliefs create shortcuts, but those shortcuts become habits, and those habits become prisons, unless you regularly shake them. So how do you break mental inertia? You become your own opponent. You take a belief you hold tightly about success, relationships, failure, your past, your worth, and you argue against it. You ask, what if the opposite is true? What would I say if I didn't agree with this? What evidence would I use to attack my own thinking? It's not about proving yourself wrong. It's about proving that you've earned the belief, that it can stand up to pressure, that it's been tested, not just inherited, repeated, or assumed. Try this in writing. Choose a belief you carry with conviction. Maybe, I'm not creative, or I need to be successful to be worthy, or people always leave. Now, argue the opposite. Gather reasons. Give examples. Pretend you're debating yourself in front of a crowd. You'll feel resistance. Your ego won't like it. But that's exactly the point. Your ego wants to be right. Your mind wants to be useful. Don't let the ego win. Because the moment you stop questioning yourself is the moment you stop growing. And the Stoics didn't fear contradiction. They used it. They welcomed it. Why? Because they knew a belief that fears being tested is already weak. So test it, not to destroy it, but to refine it. Think of your beliefs like swords. If you never strike them against anything, how do you know they won't break in battle? So sharpen them. Sharpen your mind. Ask yourself, why do I believe this? Did I choose this belief, or was it given to me? Would I still believe this if I grew up somewhere else, with different influences? You'll be surprised how many of your ideas crumble under that kind of honesty. And that's okay. You're not here to be consistent with your past. You're here to be true in your present. That means evolving. That means challenging your own thinking before the world does it for you. Because life will challenge you. And if you've never contradicted yourself, you'll break the moment something contradicts you. So make it a habit. Once a week, once a day, whenever your thoughts feel too comfortable, question them, attack them, rebuild them, not out of self-doubt, but out of self-respect. Because the strongest mind is not the one that holds the most beliefs. It's the one that holds the fewest unquestioned beliefs. Remember this, your mind is not your master. It is your instrument, but only if you tune it. So train in contradiction. Sharpen your reasoning. Be willing to stand against yourself, so that, when life pushes back, you stand taller than ever before. Number 5. Understand the biological bias toward fear. Let's get one thing straight. Your brain is not designed to make you happy. It is designed to keep you alive. That means it is constantly scanning for danger, constantly watching, constantly calculating, and more often than not, it's overreacting. Why? Because your brain evolved in a world of real threats. Tigers, cliffs, famine, tribes at war. It had to see danger everywhere, because missing one real threat meant death. Better to jump at 99 shadows than to miss one predator in the dark. But here's the problem. You don't live in that world anymore. You're not being hunted. You're not sleeping in caves. You're not surrounded by wild animals. And yet, your brain still acts like you are. That's the biological bias toward fear. It's hardwired, it's automatic, and if you don't recognize it, it will shape your entire life without you even realizing it. You'll fear speaking your truth, not because it's dangerous, but because your brain treats disapproval like a threat to survival. You'll fear change, not because it's wrong, but because your brain prefers the familiar, even when it's painful. You'll fear taking risks, trying new paths, or stepping into uncertainty, not because the danger is real, but because your mind was built to keep you safe, not successful. And here's the dangerous part. Fear feels like truth. It feels real. It shows up in your body, tight chest, racing heart, shallow breath. Your mind floods with worst-case scenarios, and you believe them because they feel urgent. But that's the illusion. The Stoics knew this. Epictetus taught that it's not things that disturb us, but our judgments about things. The brain reacts to interpretations, not reality. And fear is just a primitive interpretation, one you must learn to challenge. You are not weak for feeling fear, you are simply human. But you become wise when you learn to see that fear for what it is, an ancient alarm bell in a modern world. So how do you override this programming? First, name it. When you feel fear rise, pause. Say to yourself, this is biology. This is the ancient part of my brain doing its job, but I don't have to obey it. Label the fear. Step outside of it. Become the observer, not the hostage. Second, breathe slowly, deeply, intentionally. Fear hijacks your nervous system, but your breath is the override button. With each breath, you send a signal to your brain. We are safe. We are not under attack. This brings your rational mind back online. Third, ask better questions. When fear floods in, don't ask, "What if this goes wrong?" Ask, "What if this goes right?" Ask, "What's the actual risk?" Ask, "Have I survived worse?" Because you probably have. And finally, act anyway. The Stoics didn't wait for fear to vanish. They moved forward in spite of it. That's what made them strong. Courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is seeing fear clearly and walking forward anyway. It's saying, yes, my brain is firing alarms, but I will not be ruled by false emergencies. Because once you understand your brain's bias, you can stop being its victim and start being its commander. Remember, fear is natural, but obedience to fear is a choice. And the person who can override fear, who can step forward when the old mind says stay small, that person becomes unstoppable. So the next time you feel fear rise in your chest, don't run from it. See it. Name it. Breathe through it. Then remind yourself, this is old programming, and I am no longer living in the past. Because you are not here to survive, you are here to grow. And growth begins the moment you stop mistaking fear for fact. Number 6. Interrupt thought loops with physical action. You know the feeling. You're stuck in your head, going in circles. A problem you can't solve. A conversation you keep replaying. A fear you keep feeding. You analyze it. You try to think it through, but instead of finding clarity, you just sink deeper. That's the trap of overthinking. And the truth is, your brain loves this trap, because thinking feels like doing. Worry feels like progress, but it's not. It's motion without movement. It's being trapped in a mental cage and calling it processing. The Stoics knew better. They knew the mind, when left unchecked, becomes a theater of endless loops. You imagine, you fear, you doubt. Then you imagine again, and again, and again. It never ends, unless you break the loop. And one of the most powerful ways to do that is with physical action. Here's the simple truth. Overthinking thrives in stillness, but action breaks the spell. You can't think your way out of every thought, but you can move your body and change your state. When your mind becomes a trap, use your body as a tool. Walk, breathe, stretch, move, go outside, touch something real, feel the air, feel your feet on the ground. Because your body is here, now. It doesn't live in the past. It doesn't dwell in the future. It pulls you out of the spiral and plants you in the present. This is not a distraction. It's a reset. Epictetus said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." And when your mind is spinning, the best philosophy is motion. You don't need to go to the gym. You don't need a routine. You just need to do something that involves effort and focus. Even something small, a 5-minute walk, a cold shower, a quick set of push-ups, picking up an object and cleaning it with care. Anything that reminds your brain, we are here, we are in control, and we are not prisoners of thought. Because the longer you sit still, the louder the thoughts become. And if you always stay in your head, you'll start to believe every voice that echoes there, even the ones that lie. That's why Stoics valued discipline, not just in thinking, but in doing. They believed in acting with intention, especially when the mind was clouded. Marcus Aurelius wrote his meditations in the middle of war, surrounded by uncertainty, grief, and politics. He didn't solve everything by thinking harder. He solved it by doing, by showing up, by leading, by staying grounded in reality. You can do the same. The next time you find yourself spiraling, don't just sit there and try to figure it out. Stand up, move, do something physical no matter how small, because motion breaks stagnation. And the fastest way to change your mind is to change your posture, your breathing, your surroundings. And don't wait until you feel like it. If you wait for your thoughts to clear up before you move, you'll never move. You move to create clarity, not the other way around. So remember this: your body is not separate from your mind. It is your tool, your anchor, your reset button. You don't need perfect thoughts to take action, but you do need action to interrupt imperfect thoughts. And once you train yourself to act, especially when your mind tells you to freeze, you become dangerous to the part of you that wants to stay stuck. Because action is power, and power is clarity. So when the next thought loop begins, don't sit and wait for peace to arrive. Get up, move, breathe. Let your body remind your mind who's really in control. Number 7. Reprogram the mind with contradictory experiences. You can argue with fear all day long. You can tell yourself it's irrational. You can list all the reasons why it doesn't make sense. You can repeat affirmations, read books, watch videos. But still, the fear stays. Why? Because the mind doesn't change through logic alone. It changes through experience. You can't always think your way into a new belief. Sometimes you have to live your way into it. You have to do the thing your mind says you can't do. You have to step into the fire and walk out stronger. That's what Stoics understood. They didn't just talk about courage, they practiced it. They deliberately exposed themselves to discomfort, challenge, and contradiction, because they knew that experience rewires the brain in a way that thought alone never can. Let's be clear, your current fears and assumptions were learned. You weren't born afraid of rejection. You weren't born thinking you're not good enough. You weren't born assuming the world is dangerous. You picked those up through experience. Something happened, maybe once, maybe repeatedly, and your brain took notes. It made conclusions, and those conclusions became beliefs, not because they're true, but because they were emotionally charged. So, how do you change those beliefs? Not just by talking about them, not just by analyzing them. You change them by giving your brain new evidence, contradictory evidence, experiences that break the old pattern. You're afraid of public speaking? Don't just read about confidence. Go speak. Even if it's shaky, even if your hands tremble, your body will survive, your brain will adapt. You think people will judge you for being yourself? Go be yourself on purpose. Let them judge. Watch what actually happens. You believe you're not creative, not smart, not capable? Put yourself in an environment where you have to create, solve, or lead. Let your actions tell a new story. It's not comfortable, it's not easy, but it works because it's real. Experience overwrites fear, and every time you step into the thing you thought you couldn't handle, you build a new belief. I can face this. I'm not powerless. My mind was wrong. And those beliefs, they're not theories, they're earned. That's what makes them unshakable. Marcus Aurelius didn't rise to wisdom by sitting in a library. He went to war. He ruled an empire. He faced betrayal, sickness, loss, and the weight of power. and still showed up every day with discipline and clarity. He lived his philosophy, and you must do the same. You don't reprogram your mind with more information. You reprogram it with different input, real moments that directly challenge what fear has told you to believe. This is not recklessness. This is training. It doesn't mean throwing yourself into chaos blindly. It means choosing experiences that stretch you intentionally, strategically, until the old limits no longer apply. And here's the best part. You don't have to feel ready. You just have to act. Because it's not about confidence, it's about exposure. The more you expose your mind to contradiction, the less power fear has over you. So seek out the challenge. Go where the discomfort is. Let reality show your brain what your thoughts have been hiding. And remember this, every fear that's been programmed into you can be rewired. But it won't happen through theory. It happens through action. Contradict the fear with your life, and your life will start to change. Number 8. Use precision of language to disempower mental chaos. Your mind can be loud, but it's often not clear. When you're overwhelmed, anxious, or lost in emotion, it's rarely because the problem is too big. It's usually because your thinking is too vague. You feel a heaviness in your chest, a racing heart, a restless mind, and all you can say is, "I feel bad," or "something's wrong." But what exactly? You don't know, and that's the problem. Vague inner dialogue fuels chaos. It keeps you trapped in fog. The less specific your language, the more powerful your emotions feel. The more precise your words, the weaker those emotions become. This is not just philosophy. This is brain science. And the Stoics understood it long before we had neuroscience. Marcus Aurelius didn't write pages of poetic confusion in his journal. He didn't say, "I'm just feeling off today." He named things. He said, "This is irritation," or "This is the fear of loss," or "This is vanity disguised as virtue." Why? Because naming the emotion is the first step in taking control of it. When you name it, you separate yourself from it. You stop being inside the feeling, and you start observing it from the outside. And when you can observe your mind clearly, you can govern it. Let's be real. Most people don't suffer because of what's happening. They suffer because they don't understand what's happening in their own minds. They react to a storm inside without knowing what started it. They just feel the chaos. But chaos thrives on vagueness, and order begins with clarity. So how do you get clarity? You speak with precision. You identify what's really going on. Not just, "I'm sad," but "This is regret over what I didn't say." Not just, "I'm angry," but "This is resentment because I feel ignored." Not just, "I'm anxious," but "This is fear of being seen as a failure." This isn't weakness. This is discipline. It takes strength to slow down, examine the storm, and give it a name. Because once it has a name, it's no longer in control. You are. The Stoics weren't emotionless. They were emotionally intelligent. And their intelligence came from clarity, not denial. They understood that the mind, when left undirected, will create unnecessary suffering. But a trained mind, a mind sharpened by honest words, can face almost anything. So make it a practice. When you feel overwhelmed, don't run from the feeling. Don't drown in it. Sit with it and describe it with brutal accuracy. Use real words, not soft, vague ones that protect your ego. Don't say, "I'm just tired," when what you really feel is disappointment or envy. Don't say, "I'm fine," when what you feel is shame. The more clearly you describe your mental state, the more clearly you can respond to it. And once you respond with clarity, you no longer spiral into confusion. You choose your next move. This is how you take power back from your thoughts. You don't silence them by force. You disarm them with truth. Precise, honest, unflinching truth. Even if it stings, especially if it stings. Because precision isn't about being right. It's about being real. So next time your thoughts feel like noise, don't shut them down. Define them. Say, "This is the voice of fear." Say, "This is the shadow of regret." Say, "This is a story I've told myself too many times." And then decide, will you believe it? Or will you move forward with clarity? Because the mind that can name its pain can outgrow it. The mind that speaks precisely thinks powerfully. And the person who commands their language commands their life. Number 9. Watch for mental narcissism in the form of victimhood. It sounds harsh, but it needs to be said. One of the most subtle and dangerous forms of ego isn't arrogance. It's victimhood. It's when your mind starts clinging to pain, not just as something you feel, but as something you are. And once pain becomes part of your identity, it becomes almost impossible to let go of, even when it's destroying you. That's the trap. That's mental narcissism. It's when suffering becomes a performance. When the story of what happened to me becomes more important than who you're becoming now. Let's be clear. Pain is real. Life hits hard. You've been hurt. You've been betrayed. You've been disappointed. None of that is weakness. A Stoic doesn't deny the reality of suffering. But what the Stoic refuses to do is make suffering their personality. Because once you build your identity around wounds, you'll subconsciously resist healing. Why? Because healing would mean letting go of the story that gave you attention, sympathy, or a sense of uniqueness. The ego hates that. The ego wants to be seen, and if it can't be seen for greatness, it will settle for being seen through pain. Marcus Aurelius said, "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been." That's not denial. That's responsibility. You can't control what happens to you, but you can control how tightly you hold on to it. You can stop repeating the same story in your mind, day after day, year after year. You can stop using it to justify your limitations, your bitterness, your inaction. The victim identity whispers things like, "People always hurt me," or "Life is unfair," or "They don't understand what I've been through." And maybe those things were true, but repeating them doesn't move you forward. It just feeds your sense of separateness. It feeds the idea that your pain makes you special. And if you're not careful, you'll start wearing your wounds like armor, proud of them, even as they cut into your own skin. You have to be brutally honest with yourself. Is this pain something I'm trying to heal, or something I'm using to protect my ego? Am I telling this story because it's helping me grow, or because it keeps me safe from having to grow? That's the real test. Because the moment you use suffering as a shield against responsibility, you stop evolving. And here's what's worse. When victimhood becomes identity, you start creating more pain just to maintain the role. You look for ways to be mistreated. You assume the worst in people. You avoid solutions. Because if the problem goes away, who are you without it? This is hard to admit, but it's necessary. Because the Stoic path is not about being emotionally bulletproof. It's about being mentally honest. And mental honesty means calling yourself out when your suffering becomes self-serving. It means asking, what would I be doing with my life if I stopped being the victim? and then facing the discomfort that question brings. You don't have to pretend nothing ever hurt you. You don't have to act like you're above emotion. But you do have to stop glorifying the pain. You do have to stop making your past the center of your identity. Because the more you focus on how much you've suffered, the less energy you'll have to create something better. So catch yourself. When you feel the urge to say, "They did this to me," stop. When you want to post your pain just to get attention, stop. When you use your wounds as reasons to stay where you are, stop. That's not strength. That's ego in disguise. True strength is silent. It doesn't need applause. It doesn't need pity. It doesn't need to be seen suffering. It just keeps showing up every day, no matter what the past looks like, no matter who was unfair, no matter how deep the scar. Because at the end of the day, your life isn't defined by what hurt you. It's defined by what you do next. And the Stoic chooses growth, even when victimhood would be easier. Number 10. Exploit the mind's adaptability by choosing difficult tasks. You've probably heard that the mind is powerful, but what most people forget is that the mind is also programmable. It adapts. It rewires. It reshapes itself based on what you expose it to. And this can be your greatest weapon or your biggest weakness, because whatever you repeat, your brain starts to normalize. If you feed it comfort, it craves more comfort. If you feed it fear, it becomes more afraid. But if you feed it difficulty, voluntarily, intentionally, it gets stronger, more stable, more calm under pressure. This is where real mental toughness begins, not in avoiding stress, but in retraining your brain's response to it. The problem is, most people think stress equals danger. The moment something feels hard, the mind starts to panic. It says, "Back away, this isn't safe, this is too much." But the Stoics understood something better. They knew that not all stress is a threat. Some stress is a tool, some pain is necessary, and some fear is meant to be walked through, not avoided. Voluntary hardship, doing difficult things on purpose, teaches your brain that challenge isn't something to run from. It's something to lean into. Think of cold exposure. You step into freezing water, and your body screams. Your breath shortens. Your mind says, "Get out." But if you stay calm, if you control your breath, your nervous system begins to adjust. You survive. You step out. And something has changed. You've just taught your brain, not every shock is fatal, not every discomfort is the enemy. That lesson transfers. Now, when stress shows up in your real life, through criticism, conflict, or the unknown, you respond differently. You don't panic as fast. You don't collapse under pressure. Why? Because your brain has learned resilience through experience. Fasting does the same. Public speaking does the same. Waking up early, sitting in silence, lifting heavy weights, having hard conversations, all of these are forms of voluntary stress. They are training grounds for the mind, because when you choose discomfort, you teach your brain that it doesn't control you. You control it. This is what Marcus Aurelius did. As emperor, he deliberately slept on hard surfaces. He ate simply. He didn't surround himself with luxury or excuses. Why? Because he knew that the more you rely on ease, the weaker your mind becomes. But the more you embrace what's hard, the more your mind learns. I can do this. I don't need everything to be perfect. I can face what others avoid. And that's where power comes from. Not from talent, not from motivation, but from conditioning. You condition your mind like you condition your body, through repetition, through exposure, through chosen adversity. So here's the challenge. Pick one thing each day that's uncomfortable and do it on purpose. Not because you have to, not because someone told you to, but because you choose to, because you understand what it's building inside you. Take the cold shower, sit with the silence, speak up when you'd rather stay quiet, delay gratification when you want to give in, and remind yourself, this is not punishment, this is preparation. Every time you step into discomfort, your brain adapts. It becomes less reactive, less fragile, more stable, more capable. And over time, what once felt terrifying becomes normal. What once broke you becomes routine. That's the power of neuroplasticity. That's how the Stoics trained. You don't need life to be easier, you need to become stronger. And the way you do that is by making difficulty your ally, not your enemy. Let hardship sculpt you. Let it shape your responses. Let it teach your mind that stress is not always danger. It's growth in disguise, because the person who chooses what is hard becomes the one who cannot be broken. Number 11. Audit your inner monologue like a skeptic. Your mind is constantly talking, commenting, judging, reacting, and most of the time you don't question it. You accept it as truth, as fact, as reality. But here's the truth the Stoics knew. Just because a thought appears in your head doesn't mean it's true. Thoughts are not laws, they are not commandments, they're suggestions, sometimes helpful, sometimes harmful, sometimes downright ridiculous. And if you don't question them, they can run your life like unchecked propaganda. Your inner monologue becomes the story you live inside. If it tells you you're not good enough, you live small. If it tells you the world is against you, you isolate. If it tells you that no one cares, you stop trying. But here's the key. That voice isn't always honest. It's not always fair, and it's definitely not always accurate. That's why you need to treat your thoughts like a skeptic treats a witness in court, under cross-examination. When your inner voice says, "You're going to fail," stop and ask, "Is that true? What's the actual evidence?" Not what you feel, not what fear is telling you, but real, observable facts. Has it already happened? Have you always failed in the past? Or is this just a worst-case scenario dressed up like a certainty? When your mind says, "They don't respect you," pause and ask, who is they? What did they actually say or do? And even if it were true, what would that change about my values or actions? The Stoics knew that unchecked thoughts are dangerous. That's why Epictetus warned, don't just say you've read philosophy, live it, question your impressions. Your impressions are your thoughts, your gut reactions, your emotional narratives. And if you never hold them up to the light, you will end up obeying lies, subtle lies that sound like truth because they've been in your head for so long. But once you start auditing your thoughts, you gain leverage. You stop reacting automatically. You create space between stimulus and response. And in that space, you make better decisions. You stop believing everything you think. You stop attaching identity to every emotion. You stop feeding the mental loops that keep you small. This isn't about being cynical. It's about being neutral. It's about holding up each thought like a piece of evidence and asking, who benefits if I believe this? Does this thought serve your growth, or does it serve your fear? Does it move you forward, or does it keep you safely stuck in an old narrative? If the thought isn't helping, why keep entertaining it? This kind of mental auditing takes practice. It takes awareness, but it's one of the highest forms of self-discipline. And the more you do it, the quieter your mind becomes. Not because there are fewer thoughts, but because fewer of them stick. Fewer of them control you. You see them, you question them, you let them go. Marcus Aurelius wrote his journal not to impress others, but to interrogate his own mind. He challenged himself. He didn't flatter his fears. He brought them into the light and asked, "Is this useful? Is this rational? Is this worth holding on to?" That's what you must do too, because your inner monologue isn't just background noise, it's the script that shapes your actions. And if you don't edit that script, it will keep running old scenes, old fears, old identities. But the moment you begin to audit it, everything changes. So the next time your mind tells you something dark, small, or limiting, don't absorb it. Don't believe it just because it showed up. Sit with it, cross-examine it. Say, let's slow down. Let's look at this clearly. Because clarity isn't found in louder thinking, it's found in questioning. And the person who questions their thoughts is the one who leads them rather than being led. Number 12. Beware of the comfort trap masquerading as rationality. Not all lies sound like lies. Some sound calm, measured, reasonable, logical. But underneath their polished words, they're nothing more than excuses, crafted by a mind that's trying to protect itself from discomfort. This is one of the most dangerous tricks your mind plays. It hides fear behind logic. It dresses up hesitation as being careful. It turns cowardice into being realistic. And if you don't recognize this trap for what it is, you'll mistake comfort for wisdom. You know the voice. It says, "Now's not the right time." It says, "Let's wait until we're more prepared." It says, "This just isn't practical right now." But deep down, it's not reason that's speaking. It's fear wearing a mask. It's your mind trying to avoid risk, trying to protect you from the unknown by pretending it's being smart. That's the comfort trap. It's not loud. It's not panicked. It's persuasive. It uses good words to justify small living. And if you're not brutally honest with yourself, you'll call it strategy when it's really just surrender. The Stoics were warriors against this kind of thinking. They understood that the mind naturally moves toward ease and will build whole belief systems to justify staying there. That's why Seneca said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Because most of the time, what we call thinking it through is just our mind searching for reasons not to move. We call it planning. We call it logic. But really, it's hesitation in disguise. So, how do you expose this trick? You listen closely, not just to what the mind says, but to how it feels when it says it. Is there tension behind the thought? Is there relief in choosing inaction? Do you feel slightly smug after deciding to be smart and wait? If your rationalization brings comfort, question it. Because growth rarely feels comfortable in the moment. It's not supposed to. You must ask yourself, am I being wise, or am I just being safe? Am I postponing action because I lack clarity, or because I lack courage? Am I calling this hesitation logic because it makes me feel in control, even as I avoid the challenge I know I need to face? True rationality doesn't always lead to safety. Sometimes it leads directly into risk, into difficulty, into action that terrifies you. But it does so with purpose. It sees the risk, acknowledges the fear, and moves anyway. False rationality just stalls. It justifies delay. It makes staying stuck feel like strategy. Marcus Aurelius didn't wait for the right moment to lead Rome. He didn't wait for a perfect mental state to make decisions. He faced war, sickness, betrayal, death, and he acted. He didn't let his mind build a case for passivity. He used logic not to avoid discomfort, but to navigate it. That's the difference. And that's what you must train for, to recognize when your mind is working with you and when it's simply protecting its habits. Because when change is needed, when risk is necessary, your mind will get creative. It will offer you rational lies, and they'll sound convincing, but they're still lies. So when a big decision is in front of you, when you feel the pull towards something that matters, and your mind starts to reason you out of it, pause. Ask, is this logic, or is this fear with better branding? Don't let clever language keep you trapped. Don't let comfort wear the mask of strategy. Growth demands movement, and movement often looks reckless to a mind addicted to certainty. But you're not here to feel safe, you're here to grow. And real growth begins the moment you stop calling inaction wisdom. Number 13. Learn the language of subconscious resistance. You've said it before. I don't know why I'm avoiding this. You have a goal, a deadline, a task that matters, and still you put it off. You scroll, you fidget, you clean your room, you tell yourself you'll do it later. But later never comes, and eventually you call yourself lazy, undisciplined, weak. But here's what the Stoics and modern thinkers understand. Procrastination isn't laziness, it's fear, speaking in disguise. It's not that you don't want to act, it's that something beneath the surface is quietly telling you, don't. This is subconscious resistance. It doesn't show up as loud panic, it shows up as subtle avoidance. It speaks in the language of delay, excuses, distraction, overcomplication. It doesn't say, I'm afraid. It says, this just isn't the right time. Or, let me organize my desk first. Or, I'll be more ready tomorrow. But beneath all that is one root emotion. Fear. Fear of failure. Fear of not being good enough. Fear of being judged. Fear that once you start, you'll discover you're not who you hoped you were. Marcus Aurelius faced this too. Every day he battled thoughts of resistance. He called them out. He reminded himself that his duty wasn't to feel good, it was to act. At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work, as a human being. He didn't avoid resistance. He faced it. He decoded it. And that's what you must do too. When you feel resistance, don't shame yourself. Don't just try to push through blindly. Pause. Listen. Ask, what fear is hiding underneath this? Is it the fear of starting something you won't finish? The fear of being seen? The fear of choosing the wrong path? Get specific. Label it. Say, this isn't laziness. This is fear of being exposed. Or, this is fear of disappointing someone. Because the moment you name it, you start to disarm it. Avoidance grows in the dark, but when you shine a light on it, it starts to shrink. And that light is called awareness. Most people live in reaction. They don't look beneath their own behavior. They think they just lack motivation. But motivation isn't the problem. The problem is the inner conflict you haven't named yet. And if you never name it, you'll keep dancing around the work that actually matters. So make it a daily practice. When you're stuck, when you're avoiding, when you're self-sabotaging, stop and go inward. Ask, what am I protecting myself from right now? What emotion am I avoiding? What imagined outcome is holding me back? Write it down, speak it out, get it into the open. Because once fear becomes conscious, you can deal with it rationally. But when it stays hidden, it rules you from the shadows. And here's the truth. Most of the time, the thing you're avoiding isn't actually dangerous. It's just unfamiliar. It's just uncertain. And your mind mistakes uncertainty for threat. But you're not here to obey that primitive instinct. You're here to train it, to teach it that not every form of resistance deserves submission. The Stoic path isn't about pretending resistance doesn't exist. It's about confronting it head-on. It's about realizing that the greater the resistance, the more necessary the action. Because resistance shows up where it matters. It shows up at the edge of growth. And once you learn to read its language, you'll stop letting it trick you. So remember, when you delay, you're not being weak. You're being signaled. Your subconscious is speaking, but in code. Learn that code. Translate it. Then move forward anyway. That's how fear loses. That's how progress begins. And that's how you become someone your past self would never have believed possible. Number 14. Create psychological distance through third-person self-talk. When emotions take over, perspective disappears. The more intense the feeling, the smaller your field of vision becomes. It's like trying to navigate a storm while standing in the middle of it. Everything feels personal. Everything feels urgent. And the voice in your head, the one saying, "I can't do this," or "I'm messing everything up," only amplifies the panic. But what if there were a simple shift in language that could give you instant clarity? What if the way you talk to yourself could pull you out of the storm, just far enough to think clearly again? That's exactly what third-person self-talk does. Instead of saying, "I'm anxious," say, "John is feeling anxious." Instead of thinking, "I don't know if I can handle this," say, "John is facing a challenge right now." This simple technique, used by elite athletes, military operators, and yes, Stoic thinkers, creates psychological distance between you and the emotion, and that distance creates control. Why does it work? Because the moment you step outside of I, you become the observer instead of the reactor. You start to talk to yourself like a coach, not like a panicked teammate. And from that position, everything shifts. You're no longer inside the emotion. You're seeing it, labeling it, managing it. Just like Marcus Aurelius did in his meditations, not ranting about, "I feel this," or "I'm angry," but stating plainly, Marcus is facing irritation. This is the nature of life. He must stay calm. Modern science backs this up. Studies in neuroscience and psychology show that third-person self-talk reduces emotional reactivity and increases reasoned decision-making. It activates the brain's prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for higher thinking, while dialing down the emotional brain. In short, it lets you think while feeling, instead of being ruled by the feeling. The mind always wants to make things personal. It wants to say, "I'm failing, I'm not enough, I'm doomed." But most of the time, that's not reality. It's just reaction. Third-person self-talk lets you interrupt that narrative. It gives you space to breathe. And in that space, you remember, this is a moment, not an identity, not a prophecy, just a moment. Start using this in small moments. When you feel overwhelmed, don't say, "I can't handle this." Say, "Sarah is feeling overwhelmed right now. She needs to slow down." Or, "David is getting frustrated. That's okay. He can take a breath and respond differently." It might feel strange at first. That's normal, but very quickly you'll notice that the emotional edge softens, the intensity fades, and the decision-making sharpens. You're not pretending the emotion doesn't exist. You're just choosing to step one level above it. You're choosing agency over reaction, Because when you speak to yourself like someone you're responsible for guiding, not just surviving as, you rise above the chaos. This is not detachment in the cold, empty sense. This is detachment in the Stoic sense, seeing clearly so you can act wisely, not being consumed by what you feel, but using it as data, as signal, as part of the process, not the whole story. So remember, the words you use with yourself matter. Saying "I" when you're emotional keeps you inside the storm. Saying your name gives you a chance to stand on solid ground and assess. It turns panic into perspective, emotion into insight, and reaction into choice. Try it today. The next time fear rises, say your name. The next time anger stirs, say your name. The next time you feel like quitting, say your name and remind yourself, he's been through worse. She can get through this. They are capable. Because the moment you can step outside of your own storm, you can start leading yourself through it. Number 15. Rewrite emotional memories through intentional reframing. Memory is not fact. Memory is not truth. It feels that way, vivid, emotional, real. But the mind doesn't record reality like a camera. It records interpretation. And the more emotional the moment, the more distorted the memory becomes. Your brain locks onto the feeling, then builds a story around it. A story you often carry for years. And unless you go back and deliberately question it, you'll live your life through that story as if it's set in stone. This is why people say things like, "I've always struggled with confidence," or "I've never been good in relationships," or "I just can't trust people." These aren't facts, they're narratives, formed during emotionally charged moments, then repeated so many times that they became identity. But here's the truth the Stoics understood. You can't control what happened, but you can control how you interpret it. You can revisit the memory, you can challenge the story, and in doing so, you can rewrite the belief that's been limiting you. Marcus Aurelius faced betrayal, heartbreak, illness, and loss. And yet, he didn't write, "This ruined me." He wrote, "What stands in the way becomes the way." That's reframing. It's the ability to take an event, especially one that hurt, and say, "Let me look at this again. Let me decide what it means." And that choice, that mental shift, can change everything. Because when you reframe a memory, you change your relationship to it. The event doesn't change, but the meaning does. And meaning is what shapes identity. Meaning is what shapes behavior. If your mind has labeled a childhood failure as proof that you're not capable, that story will keep showing up every time you try something hard. If you interpreted rejection as proof that you're unworthy, that belief will echo in every relationship you enter. But what if you went back to those memories, not to relive the pain, but to reshape the message? What if you said, "That wasn't proof that I'm broken. That was proof that I survived something hard"? What if you said, "That person didn't reject me. They rejected a version of me they didn't understand, and that's okay"? What if you said, "That failure didn't define me. It built me"? This is not denial. It's not pretending something didn't hurt. It's choosing a constructive lens instead of a destructive one. It's reclaiming authorship over your past, not to change the facts, but to rewrite the conclusions. The Stoics practiced this every day, not through therapy, not through trauma work, through reflection, through journaling, through the discipline of asking, "What else could this mean?" And that question is your tool. Because every memory that haunts you, holds a meaning that you assigned, and you have the power to assign a new one. Sit with your past, not endlessly, not as a victim, but as a student. Look at the moments that still sting. Ask, what did I make this mean about me? Then ask, what's another way to see it? Not a sugar-coated version, a wiser one. One that gives you agency instead of shame. One that reminds you not of your weakness, but of your strength. Because every painful memory is a fork in the road. You can let it harden into a permanent label, or you can revisit it and use it as fuel. That's what Stoic reframing is. Using the past to build the future, not to excuse the present. So remember, your past only owns you if you never question it. But the moment you go back and speak to it with clarity, strength and honesty, you start to rewire your mind. You begin to reframe fear as growth, failure as training, and pain as preparation. And from that new frame, you move forward, not as someone defined by their past, but as someone forged by it. Your mind can build empires, or it can build prisons. It can guide you with clarity, or trap you with fear. The enemy is not out there. It's in here. In the thought loops, the false identities, the comfort disguised as logic, the quiet voice that tells you to wait, to shrink, to doubt. But now you've seen the truth. Your thoughts are not facts. Your fear is not prophecy, and your resistance is not the end of the story. You have the tools. The 15 Stoic lessons you just heard aren't theory. They are weapons. Use them, sharpen them, train with them daily. Because the war isn't against the world, it's against the part of you that refuses to rise. Now it's your turn. In the comments, I want you to write, I will no longer obey a weak mind. I am conquering myself. Don't type it for me, type it for you. To seal it in, to plant the flag, to send a message to the part of your mind that's held you back for too long. And if this spoke to something deep inside you, if it woke something up, subscribe to the channel. This is your training ground. We don't do comfort here. We do clarity, discipline, and growth. Because your mind isn't just something you live with, it's something you master. And that mastery, it starts now. Let's be honest, your life is filled with things that don't serve you, that hold you back and drain your energy. But have you ever stopped to consider why you continue to carry these burdens? Sometimes, the greatest act of rebellion isn't making noise or causing a scene, but quietly letting go of everything that doesn't add value to your life, whether it's toxic relationships, unhealthy habits, or self-destructive patterns. And the best part? You don't need to create a spectacle out of it or seek anyone's approval. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to follow the wisdom of Stoic philosophy, release what you can't control, and set yourself free. Because, my friend, life is too short to be stuck under the weight of other people's expectations. I will guide you, step by step, in eliminating 10 things that are undeniably causing chaos in your life, not only physically, but mentally as well. These things are slowly destroying you, and you might not even realize it yet. If you don't act soon, you could lose something even more precious, your peace of mind. So start today, quietly and without excuses. What you leave behind says far more about you than anything you try to hold on to. Are you ready to start living for real? But before you begin, listen to this story that will help you better understand the wisdom behind this message. In a small village by the sea, there was a young fisherwoman named Helena. She was known for her skill in navigating even the roughest waters and for her ability to catch fish on the coldest and most difficult days. However, over time, Helena accumulated a large number of broken nets and old tools that she no longer used. Yet, out of habit, she kept them, taking them with her every time she set out to sea. Her little boat became filled with unnecessary items that only got in the way of her work. One day, as Helena was preparing for a long journey out into the ocean, a fierce storm suddenly appeared. The waves slammed against her boat, and she realized that the excess weight she was carrying was making it almost impossible for her to navigate. For hours, she fought against the storm, but soon realized that it wasn't just the waves she was battling. It was the unnecessary burden she had been dragging along all this time. In a moment of desperation, Helena made a difficult but necessary decision. She began to throw away anything that wasn't useful. First, she discarded the broken nets, then the old worn ropes, and finally, some objects she had kept out of attachment but that no longer served her. With every item she released, her boat became lighter, and she was able to maneuver more freely. The storm was still strong, but now Helena no longer felt trapped by the weight of the past. Thanks to this act of letting go, she was able to stay afloat and eventually return to the port, exhausted but safe. When her fellow fishermen saw her return, they asked how she had managed to survive the storm. Helena, with a calm smile, answered, "Sometimes in life we hold on to things we don't need, objects, memories, or people that only add weight to our journey. It's only when we decide to let go of the unnecessary, in silence and without drama, that we find the freedom to move forward with ease." The lesson from this story is clear. In life, there are many things we must silently eliminate in order to move forward. The burden we carry often prevents us from sailing smoothly, and only by releasing that weight can we discover our true path. Before we dive into the first lesson, if you find videos like this one helpful, I encourage you to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss any updates. Now, let's begin with the fear of other people's opinions. Have you ever wondered how many decisions in your life were made out of fear of what others might think? This fear, which seeps under your skin, prevents you from truly being yourself. It's like living on stage, constantly under the critical gaze of an audience that isn't even really paying attention. The truth is, most people are too busy dealing with their own insecurities to judge you, yet you paralyze yourself with the fear of their judgment. It's like a silent parasite feeding on your dreams, constantly whispering in your ear that you can't do something different or bold because of what others might think. And so, you change your direction, adjusting your life to what you believe others expect from you. How ironic that we spend so much of our energy worrying about other people's opinions, only to realize that we're no longer living the life we truly want. This fear pushes us to please people who often don't even play a real role in our lives, as if we've lost all sense of direction. Instead of following the compass of our intuition, we follow the false north dictated by society's expectations. You wear the mask that best fits the moment, whether at work, with friends, or even on social media. But what about the real you, the one hiding beneath all these fake smiles and borrowed opinions? Sometimes the fear of what others will say is even more subtle. It disguises itself as caution. It's not the right time. Maybe I'm not good enough. Excuses that masquerade as wisdom, but really just mask the same old fear of judgment. In the meantime, your dreams sit on the shelf, waiting for a better time to come. But the best time to act is now. It's time to eliminate this fear once and for all. The Stoics teach us that we cannot control what others think of us, but we can control how we react to it. This may sound simple, but it's not always easy. It requires constant introspection and courage. Living for yourself means making decisions that bring you joy, not just to please others. Life is far too short to live under the shadow of other people's opinions. One exercise is to start silently eliminating things that don't add value to your life, those things you're holding on to just to please others. Maybe you're keeping a job you hate because it seems like the right choice, or maybe you're maintaining an image that doesn't reflect who you are. Free yourself from these constraints, starting with small decisions. Say no to commitments you don't want to make. Do something you've always wanted to do, but were too afraid to try because of what others might think. Every little action you take will bring you one step closer to freedom. I won't lie, this is not easy. There will be days when the weight of other people's judgment feels overwhelming. But in those moments, remember this. Every time you choose to live based on what others think, you lose a little bit of who you really are. It's like a slow, silent death that can be avoided if you have the courage to be true to yourself. So start eliminating these things in silence. You don't need to announce it to the world. Just quietly set aside what doesn't belong to you, what doesn't reflect your essence. Learn to trust your own judgment and value your own opinion more than what others might think. Because, at the end of the day, the only person you owe an explanation to is yourself. As Carl Jung once said, freedom begins the moment you stop worrying about what others think of you. Now, let's talk about toxic relationships. There's a saying I love. There's no worse blind person than the one who doesn't want to see. I'm sure you've heard it before. Interestingly, we often apply this selective blindness to our own relationships. We're used to dealing with people who, in some way, take more from us than they give. I'm talking about those toxic relationships that drain your energy bit by bit without you even realizing it. The strangest part is that even though we know these relationships are unhealthy, we hold on to them as though they're indispensable. I'm not just talking about romantic relationships. This can apply to family, friends, and even co-workers. The most interesting thing is that no one is forcing you to maintain these relationships, but there you are, silently tolerating them as though letting go would be an affront to the world. Why do we do this? Maybe we were taught that breaking ties is a sign of weakness or insensitivity, as though eliminating someone from our lives is an act of cruelty. In reality, though, it can be one of the greatest acts of self-love you can perform. Let's bring a little Stoic wisdom into this. The Stoics teach us that we shouldn't waste time worrying about things we can't control, like other people's behavior. And relationships are one of those things. You can't control how people treat you, but you can control how much space you allow them in your life. Sometimes we need to be honest with ourselves and realize that we've been tolerating toxicity simply out of habit or fear of being alone. But holding on to these toxic relationships only poisons your life and prevents you from living fully. The key to freeing yourself from these unhealthy connections is to practice the Stoic art of detachment. Learn to let go of people who no longer serve your well-being and stop accepting behavior that diminishes your peace. This is not about cruelty, it's about protecting yourself and making room for healthier, more positive relationships. When you learn to release these toxic bonds, you'll find that your energy is no longer drained and you'll be able to move forward with more clarity and strength. There are things in life we simply cannot control. This applies to people around us as well. You can't control how others behave, but you do have control over whether or not you want them in your life. The concept is simple, but here's the tricky part: doing it quietly. It's not about getting back at anyone or feeling superior, but rather making a conscious decision to stop nurturing relationships that drain you. Think about it for a moment. There's no need for drama when you want to remove what no longer serves you. You don't have to announce to the world that you're distancing yourself from someone. It's like letting go of a plant that's no longer blooming. You don't keep watering it, you just stop, knowing it's no longer part of your garden, and that's okay. The plant continues on its path, and you continue with yours. Life goes on. Have you ever experienced a situation where you've spent time with someone close to you, only to feel completely exhausted afterward? It's not necessarily that this person is bad, but their energy might not match yours. Recognizing these relationships is the key. Pay attention to your body and mind. If every interaction with a particular person feels like an emotional marathon, it might be a sign that you're in a toxic relationship. It's painful to admit, but it's necessary. Here's where the strategy of silence comes in. Gradually reduce your interactions, stop seeking contact, and walk away. There's no need for grand gestures or confrontations. Just stop being available. This can be liberating. Believe it or not, it's not about turning your back on the world, but about prioritizing your own well-being. Sometimes, self-love doesn't involve loud declarations, but simply saying enough in silence. So, how can you identify these relationships? It's simple. If every time you see a message from that person, you feel a knot in your stomach, if spending time with them leaves you more drained than a week of work, or if you're always the one giving and never receiving, then you have your answer. Once this becomes clear, it's time to start the elimination process. No drama, no unnecessary explanations, just move on. It's not about being cruel or holding a grudge. It's about respecting yourself enough to stop allowing others to drain the energy that could be spent on relationships and activities that nourish you. In the end, the key is to be honest with yourself and prioritize your well-being over feelings of guilt or the fear of hurting others. Keep this in mind. Some people are like the wind. You can wave at them, but you can't hold on to them. You simply have to let them go. Now, let's talk about self-destructive habits. There are times when you catch yourself doing things that, upon reflection, you know are taking you nowhere. These are the actions that seem harmless at first, but over time they subtly wear away at your mental or physical peace. I've fallen into this trap more times than I'd like to admit. Little habits that go unnoticed, like a constant drip that erodes something solid. What happens if these small habits are the stones of our daily lives? How do you eliminate them without causing a scene? First, you have to recognize them. And that's the tricky part. It's easy to point out what bothers us in others, but when it comes to identifying these things in ourselves, it's a different story. For instance, you wake up in the morning and without thinking, you grab your phone. Not for something important, but out of pure habit. It feels like your finger is programmed to swipe the screen before your mind even catches up. It seems harmless until you realize you've wasted 20 minutes of your morning, your mind already cluttered before you even get out of bed. This is just one example. We do this with so many other things, like that extra coffee we didn't need, or that conversation we knew we shouldn't have had, or the TV series we keep watching even though it adds nothing to our lives. These little things, over time, can create a significant hole in our well-being. Now, eliminating these habits is another matter altogether. Let's be honest. How many times have you promised yourself to leave something behind, only to end up doing it even more? It's like saying, starting tomorrow, I'll begin for real, only for tomorrow to come and go with more excuses. This is where a lesson from the Stoics can be helpful. The ancient philosophers believed that great transformations don't happen all at once. Instead, they happen in small, almost imperceptible steps. You don't need to announce to the world that you're going to change or make a big gesture. It's enough to start observing. The key is awareness. When you notice that your hand is reaching for your phone for no reason, just stop. You don't need to throw your phone out the window, though that might feel cathartic, but simply let go and do something else. Something as simple as taking a deep breath and stretching. When you feel the urge to have that third cup of coffee, ask yourself, do I really need this, or is it just out of habit? If it's the latter, leave the cup. Sometimes it's that simple. Stop at the right time. No drama, no need for monumental changes. Eliminating self-destructive habits doesn't mean you'll become a perfect person overnight. We all have our internal battles, and that's okay. The point is to approach them with a simple strategy, silence and consistency, like a drop of water that, instead of wearing away, gradually polishes. There may be times when you feel like you're not making progress, but remember, what seems like a small effort today will eventually turn into something much more significant. It's like planting a seed. One day, without making a sound, it grows into a tree. The same happens with these small adjustments. So, the next time you identify a habit that hurts you more than it helps, quietly eliminate it. There's no need to announce it or make a big show of it. Just let it go, step by step, drop by drop. As Epictetus said, true change happens not with a loud noise, but through quiet persistence. And then there's the desire to control everything. Have you ever felt that if you didn't have absolute control over everything around you, the world would fall apart? I understand. We often like to believe that if we can organize every detail perfectly and prevent all unforeseen events, life will function like a well-oiled machine where nothing can go wrong. It's an absurd thought, yet we find ourselves trapped in this mindset, convinced that we can control everything that happens to us. But this is a trap, a lie we tell ourselves. And the worst part is, the more we try to hold on to control, the more we lose our balance. So I ask you, what would happen if you let go of that obsessive need for control? The truth is, this constant desire to control everything is nothing more than a mental prison. A prison built brick by brick each time we convince ourselves that with enough effort, everything will go according to plan. But life doesn't work that way. Stoic philosophy teaches us that the key is not to control what we cannot, but to let go of the unnecessary and focus on what really depends on us. Think about it. We try to control things like the weather, other people's opinions, their reactions, the results of our efforts, all things that are beyond our control. It's like trying to hold back the tide with our bare hands, a complete waste of energy, yet we do it constantly. And then, when things don't go as expected, we get frustrated and angry, as if some cosmic injustice has occurred. The irony is that most of the things we worry about never actually happen. I used to obsess over predicting everything that could go wrong in my life. If I had a meeting, I'd plan for every possible uncomfortable question. If I was going out with friends, I'd worry about the weather, the location, and anything that could potentially go wrong. It was exhausting. And you know what? Most of the things I worried about never came to pass. I realized that this constant need to predict everything didn't give me more control. It only gave me more anxiety. So little by little I started learning to trust the process more. And what happened next? Things continued to unfold, some positive, others not so much. Yet despite the ups and downs, I felt a sense of lightness because I had stopped carrying what wasn't mine to carry. Trusting life doesn't mean being passive or irresponsible. It means accepting with maturity that some things are beyond our control and learning to be at peace with that. It's about letting go of the overwhelming need to control everything. I made room for the unexpected, for surprises, for things beyond my immediate reach. This doesn't mean you should sit idly by and let life pass you by, but it does mean releasing the burden and acknowledging that there are parts of the journey that simply aren't up to you. And do you know what else? This realization is incredibly freeing. Sometimes the most powerful way to take control is by letting go, as Marcus Aurelius wisely wrote in his Meditations. True control comes from the ability to release what is uncontrollable. Now, let's talk about unrealistic expectations. For a long time, I believed that I had to be perfect. Nobody explicitly told me this, but it was a constant, unspoken pressure, hovering around me in the form of well-meaning comments, approving glances, and the silent comparisons I made with others. I grew up believing that meeting the expectations of others, and even my own, was the ultimate measure of success. But over time, I learned that this was a massive lie. When you stop to think about it, trying to meet unrealistic expectations is like trying to fill a bottomless well with a leaky bucket. No matter how hard you work, it's never enough. You're constantly exhausted, and in the end, all you're left with is a puddle of frustration at your feet. The most ironic part? Many of these expectations weren't even mine. They were imposed on me by family, friends, society, and I accepted them because, in the search for self-improvement, I thought I had to fulfill them. Take a moment for a quick exercise. How many times have you felt disappointed for not achieving something that you didn't even truly want? We impose goals so high on ourselves that when we fail, we feel worthless. If I'm not the best at my job, the perfect partner, the ideal friend, the exemplary son, then what's left of me? These expectations eventually weigh us down more than our actual actions do. It's like trying to run a marathon while carrying a backpack full of rocks. You move more slowly, tire faster, and even if you do finish, it feels like you've done it while dragging your feet. This is where Stoic philosophy comes in, with its brilliant perspective on managing expectations. According to the Stoics, you cannot control what others think of you, nor can you guarantee that the universe will always be in your favor. What you can control is how you react to these things. The key, then, is to lighten your load, to lower those expectations that suffocate you. Expecting less from yourself and from others doesn't mean you're settling. It means you're freeing yourself from the constant pressure of trying to live up to the impossible. You're simply existing and moving forward. Of course, this process doesn't happen overnight. I'm not suggesting you toss all your expectations aside at once. Think of it like cleaning out a closet full of old clothes. First, take a look at what no longer fits or what you've never really liked, and get rid of it piece by piece. Sometimes you hesitate to let go of a t-shirt, thinking you might wear it one day, but deep down, you know you won't. With expectations, it's the same thing. Start by eliminating those that don't belong to you. Then review the ones you've set for yourself and ask, are these realistic? You don't have to keep every expectation. One way to help reduce expectations without creating drama is by changing the way you talk to yourself. Instead of saying, I need to do everything perfectly, try saying, I will do the best I can with what I have right now. It seems simple, but it's incredibly liberating. You're giving yourself space for mistakes, which are human, and for the possibility of improvement without the constant pressure of needing to be flawless. Another trick is to avoid telling everyone about your plans. The less noise you make, the fewer expectations others will have about what you should achieve. After all, external expectations are just that, external. You can silently eliminate what no longer serves you and you'll begin to notice that things start to flow in a more natural, effortless way. Letting go of expectations isn't about giving up, it's an act of wisdom. Instead of focusing on what you should do or be, focus on what you truly want and what is under your control. Less expectation equals more freedom. Keep this in mind. The less you wait for, the lighter you'll become. Now consider the need to always be right. There's a nearly obsessive need to always be sure that you're the one with the right answer. Every conversation becomes a battlefield, and winning means proving you're right. But the worst part of this constant battle isn't with others, it's with yourself. Every time you feel the urge to have the last word, it's as if you need to convince yourself that your value depends on being right. But honestly, I'm tired. I'm exhausted from this endless race. We've been conditioned to believe that we always need to have the right answer, as if making a mistake is a sign of weakness. Society, social media, and even family gatherings reinforce the idea that failing is the ultimate failure. But here's a secret. Sometimes being right is the least important thing in life. Stoic philosophy teaches us to accept what we cannot control, and one of those things is how others perceive us. This endless need to prove that you know everything leads nowhere. It only increases anxiety and frustration. And in the end, you're left alone. So, what do you gain by always being right? An invisible medal that's hardly worth the effort. Next time you feel that compulsion to prove you're right, try staying silent, not out of resignation, but as an act of liberation. It's like letting go of a pen that you've been holding for hours without realizing it. When you release it, you'll feel a relief you didn't even know you needed. With the need to always be right, it's the same. When you let go of that burden, you'll realize it was something you didn't even want to carry. So how do you release this need? Start by accepting that you don't need to know everything. It's okay to make mistakes, and it's okay not to have an opinion about everything. You're not competing in a wisdom contest. Learn to listen, not just to refute, but to understand. There's a huge difference between hearing and listening. Hearing is a biological function. Listening is an art. When you listen carefully, the anxiety to impose your point of view disappears. Sometimes the best response is simply to let others have the last word. Not every conversation needs a winner. In the end, winning an argument is not the same as finding peace. Is being right worth sacrificing your peace of mind? Next time you're in a conversation and feel the urge to correct or impose your opinion, take a deep breath. Let go of the pen. Let go of the need to be right. The peace you'll feel will be infinitely more valuable than any fleeting victory. If it helps, remember the Stoics. They knew that true wisdom isn't about winning every battle, but knowing when not to fight. Finally, let's talk about digital noise. Have you ever noticed how surrounded you are by digital noise? I'm not just talking about the cars on the street or the neighbor drilling a wall, but the noise from your phone, social media, endless notifications, constant messages. Everything seems designed to keep you in a state of constant alert, and it makes you think you're in control. But in reality, this digital chaos is controlling you. In a world where silence is often seen as a luxury, this luxury may feel far out of reach, but the truth is that it isn't as unattainable as it may seem. The first step in achieving this peace is to recognize what is truly stealing your attention. There are, in fact, things in your life that you can quietly eliminate, and yes, it is possible to do so, though it might not be immediately obvious. Let's be honest. Digital chaos doesn't disappear simply by closing an app. That would be like trying to put out a fire with a glass of water. Instead, what you need is a more radical approach, much like the Stoics, who understood that inner peace was the most important thing to attain. They didn't achieve peace by being swept away by external distractions. So, what should you silently eliminate from your life? Let's explore. First, social media. I know, it sounds cliché, but believe me, the more accounts you follow, the more noise you're inviting into your life. I'm not suggesting you disconnect completely, but take a moment to think about it. Do you really need to know what your sister's friend's cousin is up to? It's time to ruthlessly eliminate everything that doesn't contribute to your well-being. And if you can, do a digital cleanup from time to time, much like you would organize a cluttered closet. Get rid of things that no longer serve you, or worse, things that never should have been there in the first place. Now, let's talk about notifications. This is where things get interesting. Why do you allow your phone to interrupt you every few minutes? Every time it vibrates or makes a sound, your brain jumps to attention. This doesn't just steal your time, but it also drains your mental energy. My advice is to disable all non-essential notifications. At first, you might feel a certain anxiety, like you're missing out on something, but soon enough, you'll realize how freeing it is to have control over when and how you check your phone. You'll thank me later. Next, there's the fear of missing out, another modern villain. We live with this constant anxiety, feeling that if we're not connected, we'll miss something important. But here's an uncomfortable truth. What really matters isn't on that screen. It's in the people around you, in the moments you overlook while you're engrossed in the latest viral meme. Let go of the fear of missing out. The more you try to stay up to date with everything happening online, the more you lose touch with what truly matters. Once you begin eliminating the noise, something magical happens. You begin to hear what really matters. Digital silence is the first step toward reconnecting with yourself, with your thoughts, and with your true priorities. This is where Stoic philosophy can guide you. The Stoics knew that you can't control what happens outside of you, but you can control how you react to it. When you clear away the digital noise, the rest becomes clearer. My advice is to choose silence, not as an absence of sound, but as a conscious decision to be present with what truly matters in your life. In the end, that is the true luxury of our age. As Gandalf said, peace does not come when noise goes away, but when you decide to listen to yourself. Now, let's talk about negative thoughts. Have you ever stopped to notice how these thoughts creep into your mind without warning? Like unwanted visitors, they arrive uninvited, and suddenly they seem to take control of everything. They're like those neighbors who drop by without notice, and worse, refuse to leave. The frustrating part is that we often give them the key to our minds, not because we want to, but because we're convinced that their presence is an inevitable part of our daily lives. But what if I told you that you can change the lock? Let's be clear, these negative thoughts are nothing more than destructive patterns that shape our actions, and not in a good way. I'm sure you've caught yourself thinking things like, "Why does everything go wrong for me?" Or, "I'll never achieve anything." And of course, when these thoughts repeat themselves over and over, you start believing them. What you believe, you act on, and what you act on shapes who you become. It's like planting a poison tree and then wondering why the fruit is inedible. The curious thing is that these negative thoughts don't necessarily reflect reality, but they feel as real as the ground beneath your feet. This is where Stoic philosophy can be your ally. It teaches you that while you can't control what happens to you, you can control how you respond. It may sound simple, but in practice, it's something we often overlook. We let these negative mental patterns dictate our emotions and actions, even though true freedom lies in taking control of our responses. So, where do you start? The first step is silence. Yes, you read that right. Silently eliminate those negative thoughts. You don't need to make a big show of banishing them. Just start by recognizing when they appear, identifying them, and not feeding them. The more attention you give them, the more power they have. Think of it like a fly in the room. If you keep trying to swat it, you'll just make it fly around more agitated. But if you simply ignore it, eventually it will leave. The second step is to question your thoughts. When a destructive thought arises, ask yourself, is this really true? Is everything really going wrong? Or is this just an exaggerated perception? Many times, you'll realize that these thoughts are just inflated ideas with no real basis. And if there's any truth to them, focus on solutions instead of getting stuck in the problem. Finally, practice detachment. I'm not asking you to become a monk sitting atop a mountain, but start distancing yourself emotionally from your thoughts. They aren't you. Just because something crosses your mind doesn't mean you need to entertain it. This takes practice, but gradually you'll learn to see these thoughts for what they really are. Clouds in a sky that remains steady. Negative thoughts are one of those little things you should quietly eliminate from your life. No drama, just a bit of focus, patience, and internal questioning. Because, at the end of the day, what you think shapes what you do, and what you do defines who you are. As Brian Tracy once said, thoughts are not facts, but if you believe them, they become your reality. Moving on to physical and mental disorder. There are mornings when you wake up and the world feels heavier than usual. You look around and realize that it's not just a feeling. Your space is cluttered. Papers are piled up, clothes are strewn around, and your mind feels just as disorganized. I don't know if this happens to you, but when my surroundings are chaotic, I find that my mind follows suit. Physical and mental clutter are more connected than we'd like to admit. There's something deeply exhausting about the clutter around us. An untidy space directly affects your mental clarity. The Stoics, for example, emphasized focusing on what's essential and eliminating what's unnecessary. And when you think about it, clutter is the opposite of that. It's everything that doesn't serve a purpose, that distracts you and keeps your mind busy with trivialities. Accumulating things doesn't just take up physical space, it also drains your energy. Every object out of place, every piece of paper that should have been thrown away months ago, every item that blocks your path. These aren't just material things, they're noise. And this noise fills your mind with little tasks and worries you didn't even realize you had. You know that feeling when you want to organize something but don't know where to start. That's your mind responding to the clutter. The key is not to tackle everything at once, but to silently eliminate what no longer serves you. The first step is simple: observe. Look around and ask yourself, do I really need all of this? If you haven't used something in a long time, it's probably time to let it go. And this doesn't just apply to material things. Mental clutter works the same way. Sometimes we accumulate thoughts, worries, and feelings as if we're holding on to broken objects, thinking they might be useful someday. But the truth is, holding on to them only weighs us down. So, what should you do? Eliminate silently, little by little. You don't need to make a big announcement or create drama. Just let go of what no longer serves you, both physically and mentally. Sometimes silence is an act of rebellion in a world full of noise. If there are people in your life who make you feel uneasy, projects that no longer inspire you, or thoughts that drain you, let them go. No drama, no explanations, no long-winded discussions. Just let them go. Remember, often the order in your external world reflects the clarity in your inner world. If you start bringing clarity into your space, you'll find that it will gradually reach your mind too. It's not magic, it's a process. It's like cleaning out a drawer and suddenly feeling lighter. In the end, each thing you organize or let go of is one less worry. Every item you release is a step toward a clearer, more peaceful state of mind. The Stoics didn't complicate their lives with unnecessary things. They understood that the key to peace was focusing on what truly matters and allowing the rest to pass by without giving it undue attention. Living in a world filled with both physical and mental clutter is like wandering through a maze with no way out. But when you begin to clear away what isn't necessary, you soon realize that the way forward has always been there. It was just hidden behind the excess. If you seek peace of mind, the first step is to begin organizing your surroundings. Do so without rushing, without making noise, but consistently. Your mind will thank you for it. As Nelson Mandela once said, "When the noise is silent, the essential is made clearer." Now, let's talk about unnecessary comparisons. It's a habit we all fall into, whether we admit it or not. But ask yourself, does it really help you? It's like competing in a race that others don't even know exists, and the worst part is that they probably don't care. Meanwhile, you're obsessing over every step, every misstep, and every ounce of progress, comparing your journey to everyone else's, when that's not even the race you're supposed to be running. Comparing yourself to others is like trying to win a singing competition with someone else's voice. It doesn't make sense. You have your own rhythm, your own melody, yet you insist on following someone else's score. The problem with this habit is that it slowly undermines your self-esteem. You might wake up one day and feel like you're not enough, like you're not fast enough, not skilled enough, all because you spent too much time looking around and not enough time focusing on your own path. The truth is that life is not a race, it's more like a boat journey. You choose your route, your stops, your pace. But if you're too focused on the boats passing by, you risk losing control of your own direction. What's even more absurd is that while you're watching someone else's boat, they're probably watching yours too. That's how pointless comparison can be. Everyone is looking at others, but no one is enjoying their own journey. It's time to quietly eliminate this habit of comparing yourself. Just like getting rid of an old t-shirt no one needs to know about, this is something you can do without making a big show of it. But the difference it will make in your life will be profound. Comparing yourself to others is not only unhelpful, it's a betrayal of your true self. It tells your inner being that you're not enough on your own and that you need to be someone else to be worthwhile. But think about it. This mindset doesn't make sense. The Stoics taught that the only valid comparison is with who you were yesterday. So, what can you do when the urge to compare arises? First, don't try to silence that inner voice. Instead, listen to what it's saying, but question its logic. Ask yourself, why am I comparing myself to this person? What makes me feel inferior? Reflect on your own achievements and progress. We often forget how far we've come because we're too focused on looking at where others are. Another helpful practice is gratitude. I know it might sound cliché, but it's incredibly powerful. Focus on what you have, on what you've already achieved. The more you shift your attention to your own blessings, the less weight the comparison will carry. When you focus on what you have rather than what you lack or what others possess, something shifts. The pressure to compare begins to fade, and you realize that the only path that matters is your own. Life is too short to waste time in an imaginary race, constantly measuring yourself against others. Comparing yourself only distracts you from what truly matters. Live your life at your own pace, by your own rules. And when you begin to do this, you'll experience a liberating sense of freedom. I'll leave you with a reflection that helped me through some tough moments. When you stop seeing yourself through the eyes of others, you will discover who you truly are. I hope this message has been helpful to you. I want to congratulate you for making it this far and completing the video. It shows that you are committed to improving yourself. If you found this helpful, leave a comment. If you're unsure what to comment, just write gratitude so I'll know you watched until the end. If you're not yet subscribed to the channel, what are you waiting for? Join us now. Stoicism is full of teachings like this one, and I encourage you to continue exploring this powerful philosophy. I've included 2 videos filled with Stoic wisdom for you to keep learning from. Until next time. Have you ever felt the emotional sting of being overlooked by someone you truly care about? It's as if your presence doesn't matter to them, like they barely acknowledge your feelings or recognize your needs, no matter how deeply you love and care for them. It's painful when your affection and attention aren't reciprocated or valued. But what if there was a way to shift this dynamic? What if you could become someone who naturally draws attention, someone people want to prioritize and keep close? In this video, we'll reveal 10 essential rules that can help you become more captivating, someone others genuinely want to be around and deeply value. Each rule we'll explore plays an important role, and we encourage you to watch the entire video to understand why every single one is crucial for improving your personal relationships and enhancing how others perceive you. Now, let's dive in. The first rule is to keep certain things to yourself and allow an air of mystery to surround you. There's something inherently attractive about not knowing everything about a person. Mystery holds power. As the philosopher Seneca once said, "To be everywhere is to be nowhere." Let that quote serve as a guide for how you carry yourself. Be present, but don't reveal everything. Instead, maintain a sense of mystique, like a novel with hidden chapters waiting to be discovered. Let people learn about you gradually and with intention. Reveal different pieces of your story over time, allowing them to become more curious and interested in who you are. This approach turns your personality into an engaging puzzle that others are drawn to solve, making them eager to uncover more. Think of Cleopatra, the iconic historical figure. Not only was she known for her beauty and influence, but also for her enigmatic nature. She didn't lay all her cards on the table. She held her thoughts and motivations close, sparking intrigue and fascination in those around her. If you want to draw people toward you, be unexpected. Take different paths. Explore unfamiliar territories in your actions and ideas. This unpredictability captivates attention and makes others want to understand you better. In simple terms, your life doesn't need to be an open book for everyone. Think of your story as a novel filled with chapters that unfold one by one. By keeping certain aspects of yourself private, you become more intriguing, and others will feel compelled to learn more about you. The second rule is to create a subtle fear in others of losing you. Often, people fail to value what comes too easily. When something feels replaceable, it's taken for granted. But when there's a risk of losing it, people pay attention. You want to position yourself as someone unique and irreplaceable, someone whose absence would be deeply felt. You are not just another option among many. You hold distinct value in someone's life. How can you instill this feeling in others? By being self-reliant and able to stand strong on your own. Let your life be full, engaging, and rich, even when you're by yourself. Show that you don't need constant attention or validation. Your independence makes others see your presence in their life as a privilege, not a given. They'll want to be part of your world, not because you're desperate for their presence, but because they recognize the value and uniqueness you bring. This mindset aligns with certain philosophical teachings that emphasize mental self-mastery, understanding that while you can't always control external events, you can control how you think and respond. That inner strength builds confidence. Your real power comes from living with purpose and self-sufficiency. When you cultivate this, people around you will view you as someone important, not just another voice begging to be heard, but someone they want to keep close and impress. You won't need to chase after their attention or plead to be noticed. Instead, they'll naturally begin to pursue your presence, recognizing your worth. Let them feel a little uneasy at the thought of losing you. Encourage them, without saying a word, to actively seek a place in your life. You're not there to beg for inclusion. You are the invitation. Let's take a moment to reflect on how Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak worked together during the early days of Apple as a powerful example. Wozniak, often affectionately referred to as Woz, possessed incredible engineering skills and played a major role in building the first Apple computers. His technical brilliance and innovative thinking were crucial to Apple's early success. Jobs clearly recognized the unique talent Wozniak brought to the table and understood just how essential his contribution was to their shared vision. Jobs didn't merely collaborate with Wozniak. He supported him, celebrated his work, and made sure others saw his importance too. In their partnership, Wozniak wasn't just another teammate. He was a foundational piece of the puzzle. If Wozniak hadn't been part of the team, it would have caused serious setbacks for Jobs and Apple as a whole. This story highlights how critical it is to acknowledge and value the specific strengths each person brings to a relationship or group project. When you make yourself irreplaceable, someone whose absence would be deeply felt, you automatically become a powerful force in any setting. Now, let's move to the third rule: create your own happiness. This is about understanding that true joy begins within you. It means realizing that lasting happiness doesn't depend on other people or outside circumstances. Instead, it comes from confidence, independence, and inner peace. When you can find fulfillment within yourself, it gives you a radiant, grounded energy that draws people in. Others are naturally attracted to individuals who carry a sense of contentment and self-assurance. When you glow with happiness that isn't borrowed or dependent, you inspire and uplift those around you. Creating your own happiness shows that you're not relying on someone else to complete you. You are already whole and joyful as you are, and that in itself is incredibly appealing. You're not placing the burden of your emotional well-being on anyone else. Instead, you're offering to share your joy, enriching the lives of others with your presence. This is what makes your company magnetic. People feel better simply by being near you because of the light you carry. The Stoic philosopher Seneca once said that true happiness is found in enjoying the present moment and not being overly anxious about the future. This idea reminds us that contentment is something we can cultivate ourselves. Consider the life of Theodore Roosevelt. He faced heartbreaking challenges, including the unimaginable pain of losing both his wife and his mother on the same day. Yet even with such loss, he found a way to generate his own happiness. He lived energetically and purposefully, engaging in activities like boxing, serving the public, and staying active in ways that gave him meaning. His happiness came from within, from living a life of action and purpose rather than relying on what others thought or did. This ability made him not just a great leader, but a deeply admired figure in history. Roosevelt's strength came from the joy and meaning he created for himself, even during life's darkest times. Next, we turn to the fourth rule. Make yourself valuable and encourage others to invest in you. Recognize that you are inherently special, like a rare and precious gem that people should treasure. Your value doesn't come from simply being around. It comes from the role you play and the meaning you add to other people's lives. Remember, what is easily available is often taken for granted. When someone must invest time, emotion, and effort into something, they are more likely to cherish it deeply. As people begin to spend their emotional energy and attention on you, their connection with you grows. You evolve from someone they casually know into someone they deeply care about. Your goal should never be to chase after their love or attention. Instead, your focus should be on showing them that your presence adds true worth to their life, something meaningful enough that they'll want to hold on to it. Let people choose to invest in you willingly. When they do, your role in their life transforms from something optional to something essential. They won't want to lose you because your presence has become tied to their own sense of value and connection. Seneca wisely said that just like a gemstone must be polished to shine, a person becomes better by enduring and learning through challenges. This teaches us that your worth isn't simply in existing, it's in growing, refining, and being someone worth working for and with. Consider the story of Alexander the Great and his mentor, Aristotle. Aristotle wasn't just another instructor to the young Alexander. He was a beacon of insight, wisdom, and clear reasoning, which were all essential tools for leading a vast empire. Alexander, known for his sharp mind and great ambition, recognized the extraordinary value of Aristotle's teachings. He didn't take them lightly. Instead, he dedicated a significant amount of time and energy to learning from him. Their connection wasn't the typical teacher-student dynamic. It was a profound and purposeful bond. Alexander regarded Aristotle as an irreplaceable guide, a true fountain of deep understanding and intellectual treasure. Aristotle didn't hand out knowledge easily. He made the process of learning a challenging and deliberate experience. This difficulty only enhanced the worth of what he had to offer. Because of that, the wisdom Alexander gained became one of the key elements behind his remarkable achievements. It was this relationship, marked by respect, challenge, and growth, that contributed to Alexander's rise to greatness. Now, let's move into the fifth rule. Don't center your entire life around one person. Your life shouldn't be completely defined by someone else. Picture yourself as a radiant star in the night sky, glowing with your own brilliance, guided by your own path. Your journey is uniquely yours, separate from anyone else's. Don't let your world orbit entirely around a single individual. You have your own dreams to follow, your own aspirations to chase, and a unique identity to fully live out. This mindset not only preserves your individuality, but also adds a sense of intrigue and vitality to your life. It keeps others naturally interested in you. Your independence and willingness to explore life on your own terms make any relationship more exciting. It's about complementing each other, not completing each other, making one another's lives better while maintaining who you truly are. When you don't place someone else at the very center of your world, you become even more attractive in their eyes. Creating a full life outside of the relationship helps you grow as a person and adds richness and freedom to the connection you share. Reflect on the words of Marcus Aurelius, the wise emperor and Stoic philosopher, who once said, "If you are at peace with yourself, you are in harmony with the universe." That wisdom speaks directly to the power of remaining grounded in yourself, even while being in a relationship. Think about Sir Isaac Newton, the legendary scientist who revolutionized the way we understand the world. Despite the heavy workload and the immense responsibilities he carried, Newton maintained a vibrant personal life filled with interests, friendships, and personal passions. He managed to strike a balance between achieving greatness in his work and nurturing a strong, independent sense of self. That balance is what made him not only a brilliant intellectual figure, but also a deeply respected and well-rounded person. His independence and dedication to his personal growth made him stand out, showing that when you live fully as yourself, you inspire admiration. Now we come to the sixth rule. Always prioritize your own needs. This principle emphasizes the importance of being deeply aware of your emotional well-being and your personal boundaries in every relationship. You must always recognize your own value and avoid situations where you are not treated with the dignity and care you deserve. It's vital to understand how important you are and never settle for being treated in a way that diminishes your self-worth. Your joy and inner peace should never be something you sacrifice for the sake of pleasing someone who does not respect you. By putting your happiness first, you send a clear message that you won't allow anyone to belittle or ignore you. In any healthy relationship, you are an equal. Your voice, your emotions, and your needs carry great importance. You are not here to be overlooked or to chase after someone's validation. Your purpose is to experience relationships rooted in mutual respect, where you honor yourself fully. When you stand firm in who you are and refuse to compromise your self-respect, you naturally gain more influence in the lives of those around you. At its core, this rule is a reminder that your happiness and self-worth are non-negotiable. They should always be front and center in your life. It's about boldly placing your personal dreams, desires, and well-being at the top of your priority list. To put it more simply, consider the timeless wisdom of Marcus Aurelius, who said, "What truly disturbs you is not the thing itself, but your judgment of it." This quote ties directly into the message behind rule number 6 because it highlights how important our mindset is when dealing with situations, especially within relationships. It's about how you process and respond to what happens to you rather than the events alone. Think about the story of Lucius Quinctius Cincinnatus, a respected Roman figure known not just for his exceptional skill in both military and political leadership, but also for his unwavering commitment to personal values and dignity. Even when people urged him to take actions that would bring him more power or influence, he stayed rooted in what he believed to be right. When his leadership wasn't required, he humbly returned to his modest farm life instead of getting swept up in the glamour and control that came with politics. He chose to distance himself from those who didn't honor or share his principles. Cincinnatus's story is a strong reminder of how vital it is to honor your own values and put your needs first. His life is a powerful example of how self-respect and personal well-being are essential not just in relationships, but in every part of life. Moving on to rule number 7. Don't make yourself constantly available and waiting. The most valuable and rare things in life are not always within reach, and your time and presence should be treated the same way. Recognize that your time holds worth, and you shouldn't offer it up freely to anyone just because they ask. Prioritize your own life first. Visualize a life where you're not simply sitting by, waiting for others. It's a life where your days aren't controlled by someone else's desires or schedule. You have your own journey to take, your own passions to follow, and those who are part of your life should see it as a privilege. It's essential to find a healthy balance and not live in a way that you're always ready to drop everything for someone else. By showing that your time and energy are meaningful, you naturally become more appealing. People are drawn to others who are engaged in their own lives and pursuits. When you're not constantly available, it creates mystery and curiosity. They begin to wonder what you're doing, what inspires you, and that curiosity deepens their interest in you. Being available at all times can send the message that you're always an option, always within reach. But the truth is, you are not just anyone. You are someone of value. This isn't about manipulating people or playing emotional games. It's about owning the fact that you have a life full of excitement, goals, and passion, with or without anyone else's involvement. When you stop putting yourself on standby, people begin to treasure the moments they do get to spend with you. Resist the habit of being constantly accessible. Think back to what Seneca, another great Stoic thinker, once said. We often fear things needlessly, and most of our suffering comes from what we imagine, not what actually happens. This reinforces the idea that your time and thoughts deserve just as much protection as your emotions. You don't need to be constantly available out of fear of missing out, or fear of being forgotten. Now, take a look at Ada Lovelace, a brilliant and innovative woman in history. She was a mathematician and a writer, best known as one of the earliest pioneers in computer programming. She lived during a time when society had strict expectations for women, expecting them to play small roles and always be accessible to others. But Ada didn't conform to those expectations. Instead, she poured her energy into her intellectual pursuits, exploring complex mathematical ideas and collaborating with other great minds like Charles Babbage. Her fierce dedication to her own work and the decision not to make herself constantly available made her all the more captivating. Ada's story reveals the strength that comes with being self-directed. She didn't wait for permission or validation from others. She created her own legacy. Her deep passion and focus drew others to her, showing that standing in your own power is not just admirable, it's magnetic. Now we arrive at rule number 8. Don't always be the one who initiates the conversation. This principle is about achieving a balanced way of communicating in any kind of relationship. It's about recognizing that constantly being the one to start conversations isn't always a positive thing. Sometimes stepping back and allowing the other person to reach out first is equally important. This shift shows that you have a full and meaningful life with your own interests, goals, and activities. It also helps reveal whether the other person truly values your presence and wants to stay connected. When you're always initiating, it can unintentionally signal that you're overly available or too eager. This isn't about playing mind games or manipulating anyone's perception. It's about establishing mutual respect and effort in the relationship. Marcus Aurelius once said that the best way to respond to someone who has wronged you is to not become like them. In the context of communication, this means choosing not to mimic unhealthy patterns or behaviors that can create emotional imbalance. It encourages you to maintain your dignity, especially when you feel overlooked or underappreciated. This rule reminds you that your self-respect is essential and that constantly chasing after someone for their attention or approval can diminish your value. Instead, you should stand firm in who you are and let others show whether they genuinely want to be part of your life. Don't become too emotionally attached. This rule is about maintaining emotional equilibrium while you develop a meaningful place in someone's life. It's a reminder that while emotional connection is important, letting your emotions take full control can be harmful, especially if your needs are being neglected or if your feelings aren't reciprocated with respect. The key is to find a healthy balance between expressing your emotions and staying composed. Although emotions are a natural and vital part of human experience, displaying them too intensely or too frequently can sometimes cause you to appear less self-contained and even less respected. Seneca offers timeless advice here. The best way to handle anger is to wait. This quote captures the heart of this rule. It emphasizes the importance of patience and restraint. When you take time to cool down and think clearly before reacting, you not only gain more control over your emotional life, but also preserve your strength and value in the relationship. Emotional intelligence means recognizing your feelings without being ruled by them. It allows you to stay grounded and maintain a sense of clarity in how you relate to others. Be willing to walk away from any relationship that doesn't honor or value you. This rule is rooted in self-worth and personal boundaries. It's about understanding what you deserve and refusing to stay in situations where you are disrespected or treated unfairly. You must set clear expectations for how you wish to be treated, and when those boundaries are repeatedly violated, you need to have the courage to leave, even if your feelings for the person are strong. Choosing to walk away isn't cruel. It's an act of self-care. It reflects a deep respect for yourself and your emotional well-being. It sends a powerful message. You are not willing to stay where you are not treated right. This decision can sometimes wake the other person up to the seriousness of the situation and show them that if they truly want you in their life, they need to step up and treat you with the respect you deserve. Your goal in relationships isn't to cling to people or situations that drain you or make you feel less than. Instead, it's to build connections where mutual respect, appreciation, and love thrive. Sometimes that means walking away when necessary. Marcus Aurelius wisely said, "You have control over your mind, not external circumstances." When you embrace this truth, you discover a deep reservoir of inner strength. Even if things around you are difficult or disappointing, your inner power remains intact. That's where real strength and peace come from. We've now explored 10 powerful ways to become truly unforgettable to others. These ideas include preserving a sense of mystery, not making yourself too available, allowing others to invest in the relationship, and always prioritizing your own needs and happiness. It's about communicating with balance, not centering your entire life around another person, and respecting your emotional health. When you take care of your own well-being and happiness, you naturally become more magnetic and appealing to others. Above all, it's about learning to value yourself fully and being ready to let go of relationships that don't serve you well. This mindset isn't rooted in a need for validation or attention. Instead, it's about building relationships that are grounded in authenticity and mutual respect. When you embody these values, you naturally become someone others are drawn to, someone they don't just like, but genuinely value. And if you ever find yourself in a situation where it feels like you're being treated as just another option, remember that you hold the power to decide what you accept in your life. You have the freedom and the strength to choose your own path, and that includes the decision to leave behind relationships that don't align with your values or worth. Your value is immense, and you are worthy of relationships where you are truly seen, appreciated, and respected for who you are. Thank you for being part of this journey. If you found this message meaningful, go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe to stay connected with a community that holds wisdom, courage, justice, and moderation close to heart. We invite you to share how you plan to apply these timeless Stoic teachings in your own life. Your reflections matter. Join us in the comments and let's grow together. This is more than just a channel. It's a space for purposeful living and genuine respect. Don't miss the opportunity to be part of something meaningful. Come with us as we continue to live with intention. Until we meet again. Have you ever felt manipulated, used, or completely drained of your emotional energy? Have you ever found yourself questioning your sanity, wondering how someone could treat you so poorly, yet make you feel as though you're the one at fault? If you've ever been in a relationship where someone constantly takes without giving, where their drama becomes your burden, or where every day feels like a battle, then this video is for you. It's time to break free from the cycle of emotional abuse and manipulation. In this video, I will share 13 insightful ways to deal with toxic people, drawing on the timeless wisdom of Stoicism, techniques that have withstood the test of thousands of years, but remain as relevant as ever in today's world. Let's dive deep into the heart of manipulation, control, and emotional warfare, and arm you with the tools you need to protect your peace and reclaim your life. Relationships today, whether romantic, familial, or even friendships, can be incredibly toxic. We live in a world where many individuals have been conditioned to manipulate others in order to get what they want. Toxic people will drain you completely, leaving you feeling exhausted, powerless, and questioning your self-worth. But here's the truth. They do not have control over you. You have the power to rise above their tactics and take charge of your emotional well-being. This is the core insight that the Stoics understood so well. Control what you can and let go of the rest. In this video, we will explore 13 powerful strategies based on Stoic philosophy that will help you handle toxic individuals like a warrior. This is not about passively accepting abuse. It's about taking bold, decisive action to protect yourself, reclaim your peace, and become emotionally bulletproof. Let's begin with something that might seem obvious, but is often overlooked. Identifying toxic behavior. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where no matter what you do, nothing is ever good enough? Whether it's a friend, partner, or family member, they criticize every little thing, constantly question your decisions, and somehow always position themselves as the victim. You end up apologizing even when you haven't done anything wrong. If this sounds familiar, you're experiencing manipulation at its core, which is classic toxic behavior. Toxic people behave like emotional parasites, draining you of your energy in ways so subtle that you often don't realize it until you're completely exhausted. They are experts at delivering small, seemingly harmless comments that undermine your confidence, making you question your worth. They might say things like, "I was just joking," or "Why are you so sensitive?" But don't be fooled. This is emotional manipulation at its finest. Toxic people love to play the victim, twisting every situation to make you feel guilty for simply standing up for yourself. How many times have you heard, "I can't believe you would do this to me," or "After everything I've done for you, this is how you treat me. These are manipulation tactics designed to make you doubt your instincts and lower your defenses. The first step in breaking free is recognizing these behaviors for what they truly are: emotional abuse. It's not just a bad day or a miscommunication. It's a deliberate attempt to control and manipulate you. Once you see through the mask they wear, you can start taking steps to protect yourself. Here's a golden rule to remember. If you constantly find yourself justifying someone's behavior to others or even to yourself, that's a huge red flag. Healthy relationships don't require you to explain away mistreatment. Toxic ones do. Now, let's address a powerful truth. It's not personal. Toxic people's behavior is never about you. It's always about them. While this might sound simple, think about how many times you've internalized their words, questioning whether you truly are the problem. They make you feel like everything is your fault, but the reality is, their behavior is a reflection of their own inner turmoil and insecurities. They can't take responsibility for their own actions, so they project their negativity onto you. Have you ever noticed how a toxic person will lash out at you when they're feeling insecure or stressed? Maybe they've had a bad day at work or are unhappy with their own life, but instead of dealing with their own issues, they take it out on you. Suddenly, you're the target, and they twist every situation to make it seem like you're the one causing the problems. But here's where Stoicism offers a powerful insight. We don't control what others do, only how we respond. Toxic people want you to react. They want to trigger your emotions because that's how they maintain control. Once you understand that their behavior has nothing to do with you, you can rise above it. You can let go of the guilt, the self-doubt, and the need to fix them. Because here's the truth, you can't fix them. You can only protect yourself. When they try to drag you into their emotional mess, remind yourself, it's not about me. You are not their therapist, their emotional punching bag, or their scapegoat. Their issues are their responsibility, not yours. Now that you've recognized toxic behavior and understood that it's not about you, it's time to set clear boundaries. And when I say boundaries, I don't mean vague, wishy-washy lines in the sand. I mean firm, non-negotiable rules that protect your peace and well-being. The thing is, toxic people hate boundaries because they limit their control over you. Let me let you in on a little secret. The reason toxic people push your limits is that they're testing you. They want to see how much they can get away with. It might start with small things, like constantly texting or calling you at all hours, interrupting your work, or demanding your attention when you need space. Then it escalates, and before you know it, you're sacrificing your time, your energy, and your mental health just to keep them happy. But here's the kicker. You don't owe anyone your energy. Your time and emotional well-being are precious, and you have every right to protect them. Setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's necessary. You have to be able to say no without guilt, without explanation, and without fear of retaliation. Here's a simple but powerful boundary. Stop explaining yourself. Toxic people love to drag you into endless explanations. Why don't you want to do this? How come you're acting this way? Don't you care about me? They'll use guilt, manipulation, and even anger to make you justify your decisions. But here's the thing. You don't need to justify your boundaries to anyone. Next time they try to cross a line, simply say, "This is what I need," or "I'm not available for that," and then end the conversation. The more you stand firm in your boundaries, the more they'll realize they can't manipulate you. Eventually, they'll either adjust their behavior or move on to someone else who will tolerate their nonsense. The next powerful strategy is mastering the art of non-reaction. Toxic people thrive on your reactions. They push your buttons to get a rise out of you, because, let's face it, they live for the drama. Every time you react with anger, frustration, or even sadness, you're giving them exactly what they want: power over your emotions. But here's the truth: you have the power to stop them dead in their tracks. Stoicism teaches us that while we can't control other people's actions, we can control how we respond. Imagine you're in the middle of an argument with a toxic person. They're throwing accusations, insults, and blame your way, hoping to provoke a reaction. What if, instead of engaging, you stayed completely calm? What if you simply didn't react at all? This might sound crazy, but I promise it's one of the most powerful moves you can make. When you stop reacting to their nonsense, you strip them of their power. They can't control you if you refuse to play their game. I know it's difficult, especially when they're pushing every button, but non-reaction is like building an emotional shield around yourself. The more you practice it, the less their words and actions will affect you. When someone tries to provoke you, pause, take a deep breath, and instead of reacting immediately, think to yourself, "I don't need to engage in this." Then say something neutral, like, "I hear what you're saying," or "I'll think about it," and walk away from the conversation. You don't owe them an emotional response, and you certainly don't owe them your peace of mind. Let's dive into one of the most effective techniques for dealing with toxic individuals who thrive on drama: the grey rock method. This strategy can truly change the game when you're dealing with someone who feeds on chaos and conflict. Toxic people crave your attention, your emotional energy, and most of all, your reactions. So, how do you deal with them? By becoming as boring and unremarkable as possible, like a grey rock. Picture this: every time this person tries to stir up drama or provoke you, you respond with the most dull, neutral response imaginable. They're expecting you to react emotionally, whether it's by exploding, crying, or getting into a heated argument, but instead you stay calm, indifferent, and completely uninterested in the turmoil they're trying to create. By doing this, you deny them the emotional fuel they need to keep the drama going. Why does this work? Because toxic people feed off your emotional responses. When you react emotionally, you give them the energy they crave. But when you become a grey rock, emotionless, detached, and unaffected by their antics, they lose interest. They thrive on drama, and without it, they are left with nothing. Over time, they may adjust their behavior because they're not getting the reactions they expect, or they may simply move on to someone else who will feed their need for chaos. Keep in mind, this isn't about being passive or letting them walk all over you. It's about protecting your peace. By refusing to engage in their game, you take back control, refusing to give them access to your emotions. That's the ultimate form of control. Try this next time someone tries to drag you into their toxic drama, and you'll be amazed at how quickly the dynamic shifts when you remain unreactive. Another powerful technique for dealing with toxic people is the broken record technique. Toxic individuals can be relentless. They don't take no for an answer and will keep pushing until you eventually give in. Does this sound familiar? Perhaps it's a friend who always expects you to drop everything to help them, or a partner who keeps asking for something you've already refused. These people can be like bulldozers, relentlessly pushing you until you cave in. This is where the broken record technique comes into play, and trust me, it's one of the most powerful tools you can use in these situations. Here's how it works. Instead of getting sucked into an argument or justifying your stance, You simply repeat your position over and over again, like a broken record. Imagine this scenario. Someone asks you to do something unreasonable, and instead of explaining, justifying, or debating, you calmly say, "I'm not comfortable with that." They'll push back, but you remain firm, repeating, "I'm not comfortable with that." No emotion, no defensiveness, just calm, steady repetition. Eventually, they'll realize they can't break through your wall, and they will either give up or reveal their true colors. This technique works especially well in close relationships where toxic individuals feel entitled to your time, energy, or resources. The beauty of the broken record technique is that it doesn't escalate the situation, but it firmly reinforces your boundaries. Toxic people thrive on wearing you down, but when you stand your ground with unwavering consistency, they lose their grip. Remember, your boundaries are non-negotiable, and you don't owe anyone an explanation for protecting your peace. One of the hardest truths you may need to accept when dealing with toxic people is that sometimes the best way to protect yourself is to limit your exposure to them. Some people are just bad for you, no matter how much you love them or how long you've known them. They bring nothing but negativity into your life, and the more time you spend with them, the more drained and unhappy you become. Toxic people can be emotional parasites. They feed off your energy, your kindness, and your attention. But here's an important truth to remember. You don't owe them anything, not your time, not your emotional energy, and definitely not your mental health. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is put some distance between you and them. I understand that cutting ties or distancing yourself can be tough, especially when the person is a family member, a longtime friend, or someone you deeply care about. But here's the uncomfortable reality. Your well-being must come first. If someone constantly makes you feel small, stressed, or emotionally exhausted, it's time to consider limiting your exposure to them. This doesn't mean you don't care about them. It simply means you care enough about yourself to protect your peace. Limiting exposure can take many forms. It might involve seeing them less often, keeping conversations brief, or steering clear of sensitive topics that trigger toxic behavior. If it's a coworker, it could mean limiting interactions to strictly professional matters. If it's a family member, it might mean setting firm boundaries around when and how you engage with them. You can still be polite and respectful while guarding your energy. Your mental health is priceless, and toxic people do not have the right to take that from you. Building a strong support system is another powerful way to deal with toxic people. One of the most insidious tactics toxic individuals use is isolation. They'll undermine your other relationships, either subtly or not so subtly, making you feel as if they're the only ones you can rely on. Over time, they chip away at your confidence, making you doubt your judgment and distancing you from the people who genuinely care about you. This is how they maintain control, by feeding off your dependency and keeping you trapped in their toxic web. But here's a powerful truth. You don't have to go through this alone. Building a solid support system is one of the most effective ways to combat the influence of toxic people. Surround yourself with people who genuinely care about your well-being, who support your growth, and who respect your boundaries. Whether they're family, friends, or a community of like-minded individuals, having a network of people who support you will make a huge difference in how you handle toxic relationships. When you have people in your corner who uplift you, it becomes much harder for toxic individuals to tear you down. Your support system should consist of people who encourage you to be the best version of yourself, those who challenge you to grow in ways that feel empowering, not draining. These are the friends who call you out when you're slipping, but they do so with kindness, not judgment. They're the ones who respect your boundaries, support your decisions, and never make you feel guilty for choosing what's best for you. When you have a tribe of people who love and respect you, toxic people lose their power because they can no longer isolate you. Remember, the stronger your support system, the weaker the toxic person's grip on your life. Find your people, lean on them, and let their positivity reinforce your own strength. Self-care is a necessity when dealing with toxic people. Toxic individuals can be exhausting, whether through emotional manipulation, constant criticism, or relentless negativity. They have a way of draining you. That's why self-care isn't just a luxury, it's a vital tool for protecting yourself. Think of self-care as your emotional armor, shielding you from the corrosive effects of toxic relationships. Without it, you're vulnerable to burnout, resentment, and emotional exhaustion. So what does self-care look like when you're dealing with toxic people? It's more than just bubble baths and spa days, though those can certainly help. True self-care involves making decisions that protect your emotional, mental, and physical well-being. It's about knowing when to say no without feeling guilty and creating space for yourself to recharge, reflect, and recalibrate. Most importantly, it's about recognizing that your needs are just as important, if not more important, than anyone else's. Toxic people will never prioritize your needs. They'll expect you to put them first, to sacrifice your time, energy, and well-being for their benefit. But here's the key. You don't have to do that. You have the right to put yourself first, to take care of your mental health, and to refuse to let their negativity drain you. Self-care might involve taking breaks from social interactions, practicing mindfulness or meditation, or engaging in activities that bring you joy and fulfillment. Self-care also means recognizing when you've reached your limit. If a toxic person is pushing you too far, it's okay to take a step back, create space, and focus on your healing. Stoicism teaches us the importance of maintaining inner peace, and self-care is the foundation of that peace. When you prioritize your well-being, toxic people lose their power over you because you no longer depend on their approval or validation. Dealing with toxic individuals can feel overwhelming, but one of the most crucial realizations you need to have is this: you cannot fix them. No matter how deeply you love them, how much effort you put into understanding their behavior, or how many sleepless nights you spend trying to help them, you are not responsible for their healing. Toxic people often remain trapped in cycles of manipulation, blame-shifting, and control because these patterns serve their own needs, whether it's emotional validation, power, or simply the ability to control others. The more you attempt to fix them, the more you become ensnared in their web. Think about times when you've tried helping someone, only to find that your efforts go unnoticed or unappreciated. Perhaps you've been in a relationship where no matter how much you gave, your partner constantly made you feel like it was never enough. This is how toxic people draw you into a cycle of guilt and obligation. You become fixated on trying to fix them, but they remain unchanged because deep down they don't want to change. Here's the harsh truth. You are not their savior. You cannot save someone who does not want to be saved. Stoicism teaches us an important lesson. We can only control ourselves, not others. When you stop trying to fix someone else and focus on improving your own boundaries and reactions, you unlock true freedom. You begin to reclaim the energy you've been wasting on someone who never appreciated it in the first place. The moment you realize that fixing toxic people is not your responsibility is the moment you break free from their manipulation. It's not your job to repair someone who refuses to heal, and you deserve relationships where your love and effort are valued and respected, not ones where your emotional labor goes unrecognized and unrewarded. The next mental shift comes with the concept of cognitive reframing. Toxic people have a remarkable ability to make you feel like the villain in their story. They twist facts, manipulate situations, and somehow make everything your fault. But here's the truth. It's not about you, it's about them. Stoicism teaches us that while we can't control what others do, we can control how we perceive the world. This is where cognitive reframing becomes a powerful tool. For example, if you find yourself in an argument with someone who constantly criticizes you, instead of internalizing their words and allowing them to affect your self-worth, try reframing the situation. Their criticism is not a reflection of who you are, but of their own insecurities. By shifting your perspective, you disarm their ability to hurt you emotionally. You start to see their toxic behavior for what it truly is, a projection of their own fears and inadequacies. Think about how often toxic individuals gaslight you, making you question your own reality or sanity. Cognitive reframing gives you the power to step back and remind yourself that this isn't about you. It's their issue, not yours. By mentally reframing their actions as a reflection of their struggles, you begin to protect your emotional strength and detach from their toxicity. The next strategy is one that may sound counterintuitive at first. Practice forgiveness, but not for their sake. Do it for your own peace. Forgiveness isn't about excusing their behavior or pretending nothing happened. It's about freeing yourself from the emotional weight that comes with holding on to anger, resentment, and hatred. The hard truth is that when you hold on to these negative emotions, you're only hurting yourself. Think about it. While you're still stewing over how someone wronged you, they've likely moved on with their life, while you remain stuck, replaying painful memories over and over again. That anger you hold on to? It's not punishing them, it's only punishing you. This is where Stoicism offers a powerful perspective. Marcus Aurelius taught us that we should forgive not for the sake of others, but for our own peace of mind. Forgiving doesn't mean forgetting or excusing. It means releasing the emotional grip they have on you. When you forgive, you stop letting their actions define your mood, happiness, or life. Forgiveness becomes a way to reclaim your power. Start small in your journey toward forgiveness. Instead of immediately trying to forgive someone for a major betrayal, begin by letting go of smaller grievances, the rude comments, the dismissive attitude. You'll be surprised at how much lighter you feel as you practice this. Over time, this will build your emotional resilience and prepare you for bigger challenges. And remember, this is about you, not them. Forgiveness is a powerful act of self-care. By letting go of resentment, you make space for peace, growth, and joy. You evict toxic people from your mental space and free yourself from their influence. Finally, there comes a time when you must walk away. It doesn't matter how long you've known someone or how much history you share with them. When someone consistently disrespects your boundaries, manipulates your emotions, or drains your energy, you need to walk away. Walking away isn't a sign of weakness. It's the ultimate display of self-respect and strength. Toxic people will try to convince you that you're the problem. They'll make you feel guilty for leaving or claim that you didn't fight hard enough to save the relationship. But don't fall for their manipulation. The truth is that you've already given enough of yourself. You've invested enough energy trying to save a relationship that continues to drain you. Now, it's time to prioritize yourself. Imagine being in a toxic romantic relationship where your partner constantly undermines you, insults you, or makes you feel like you're walking on eggshells. No matter how much you love them or how hard you try, nothing will change. The healthiest choice is to walk away. It's not easy. There will be guilt, sadness, and fear of the unknown, but your mental and emotional health are far too important to sacrifice. Walking away is about reclaiming your life. It's about refusing to let toxic people continue to hold power over you. It's a bold declaration that you value yourself enough to choose peace, happiness, and fulfillment. This is your life, and you deserve better than to stay tethered to someone who constantly drags you down. Here's the bottom line. You cannot heal in an environment that makes you sick. If a relationship, whether it's with a partner, friend, or family member, is toxic, it's time to walk away. Not every relationship can be salvaged, and that's okay. Walking away is not giving up. It's choosing to live on your own terms. It's about creating space for healthier, more loving relationships to enter your life. You are not obligated to tolerate toxicity, no matter where it comes from. Walking away is not just an act of self-preservation, it's an act of courage. You're choosing to put your well-being ahead of someone else's dysfunction. This is the greatest gift you can give yourself. In conclusion, dealing with toxic people is undoubtedly one of the most challenging experiences, but it can also be one of the most empowering. By applying these Stoic-inspired strategies, identifying toxic behavior, setting boundaries, mastering non-reaction, practicing forgiveness, and ultimately walking away, you can regain control of your emotional and mental health. Remember, you are not responsible for fixing toxic people, and you don't owe them your peace or your energy. You are responsible for yourself, and that is your greatest power. These principles will not only protect you from toxic people, but also help you grow into the best, strongest version of yourself. You deserve relationships that nurture you, not ones that drain you. With these strategies, peace is something you can achieve, no matter how toxic the people around you may be. If this video resonated with you and you found these insights valuable, I encourage you to subscribe to the channel for more content like this. I am dedicated to helping people break free from toxic relationships and live healthier, happier lives. And if you're in a position to support the channel further, consider joining our channel memberships. Every membership helps us continue to create content that empowers people like you to take control of their lives and find peace in a world full of chaos. Whether you subscribe or join the membership, both are incredible ways to support the channel and make these life-changing messages accessible to as many people as possible. Let's build a community of emotional warriors who refuse to be controlled by toxic people. You deserve peace, and together we can create it. Thank you for watching.